Yeah, I need to go grab my AirPods.
Oh, it's right there.
Okay. We are live, Mr. Williams.
All right, welcome everybody. We are live on YouTube. We are in a different format than normal. Usually we're in the boardroom. Today we are in the auditorium here at the ALC. In attendance, just for you that are at home, and I'll announce the others that come in. We have Andy Dowling. Make sure to call by your name. Andy Dowling, Jimmy Birchaw's here, Andy Elliott, Julie Hall is here, and Mr. Davis, our high school principal, is here as well as Mrs. DeGraw and myself. So welcome to our first PAW meeting of the year. We will go ahead and follow the agenda as follows. At the very end of the agenda, we will have a time for open discussion on any subjects that aren't on here. And like all PAW meetings, this is a open format, so you can stop me, you can ask questions. I will try to keep going on the agenda just to make sure that we get through everything. There's a lot to cover. But the purpose of the PAW meetings are to gather information and just feedback and share the wonderful things that are going on in the district. We're super excited about a lot of things that are happening. And these PAW meetings have helped a lot. As I started doing these my first year to gather feedback, those of you that come to them or listen to them, I want you to know that the feedback is taken and considered. And there have been several things as I was just reflecting on the PAW meetings that we have been able to take. Calendar feedback was direct. I'm looking right at Annie because some of the things that she shared went directly into the calendar and it worked out. There are some things that get shared that are considered, but we can't go with it. And so just because we do or don't go with something doesn't mean we don't appreciate the feedback and what we get. I was thinking that we had calendar information. I should have my list down because of course we're on YouTube live and we go, yeah, what else we listening to, Mr. Williams? Nothing else.
For the bond.
Information on the bond. Yep, on projects for the bond for those. And so these are really helpful. And the cell phone procedures that we did in the junior high, that was something that actually kind of started here at the PAW meeting. And then when things happened at the elementary, I was like, I know I've got my parents' support to move forward with it. And so this feedback is really important. Even if you're not here today in person and you're watching either at home or later on, reach out to us. Let's go over these things. Because as a school district, we're not going to be perfect in everything we do. Our intention is to always get better and always go and improve. That is the purpose of the PAW meeting. So thank you for being here and joining us. District mission, vision, strategic goals. At our last school board meeting, I shared these strategic goals. These are ones that have been that we've been working on with the district. And here is our mission statement: small school, big opportunities and responsibilities. That's West Jefferson. That's what we're trying to achieve. We are a small school, and that's one thing that I love about West Jefferson. As a graduate of West Jefferson, there were a lot of opportunities. We want our students to have those, and we want to be true to that. And it does create endless possibilities. We have a lot of successful people that have graduated from West Jefferson, and the possibilities can be endless, even though we are from a small school and on the offerings that we have. Our students and staff, respectful, responsible, and ready. That's going to be our vision. Everything that we have needs to revolve around this. I'm not going to read all through these. You can go through and look at those later on, but we do have beliefs that all students can learn, that we want them to be able to achieve their future and career goals. And our commitments as educators is to being committed to improving our practice as professionals in a safe environment and following the PLC questions of what is it that our students need to learn? How do we know they've learned it? What do we do when they don't learn it? And what do they do when they do? So those are the things that are our guiding principles as we go forward. Our school district board has 4 different goals under the areas of quality teaching and learning, fiscal responsibility, school environment, safety, and community relations and communications. And in any type of organization, there's always growing things. I wish that everything was perfect in a community, but it's not. And sometimes there's disagreements, and sometimes there are things that just aren't done right or correctly. But we can be committed to striving to move forward in a positive way. And really when it comes down to it, it's for our students. It's for the kids that are coming here at West Jefferson. And there might be differences of opinion on what that looks like and how it approaches. But at the end of the day, our staff, our administration, we're committed to what's best for kids, what's best for kids, what's best for our community. I strive to live that in all that I do with our mission and vision. And there's times that I can look at things and say, maybe I could have done that differently or gone this different direction. That doesn't mean that any of us have ulterior motives on something one way or another. It's just that that's just how it works. Sometimes we don't communicate as well, other times we do, but I'm hoping that through these PAW meetings, through the different things that we have coming up, that I can communicate many of the wonderful things that we are working on and working towards, but also receive feedback with some of the different plans and restrictions and different things where we have with back to school COVID plans, federal ESSER spending plans. Those are things that we have to have feedback on that I know that you guys aren't every single night going, man, I wonder what we can do with, with those things, but I'll explain what we have going on and coming forward and with that. But this mission statement was developed with a lot of staff and input. I think it really highlights what our school is and what our school wants to become. And I wanted a mission statement that I can remember. You get a mission statement that has, this paragraph here is just part of just the vision and explanation, but our mission is we're a small school, big opportunities and its possibilities, and hoping to continue with that. All right, gonna move on to back to school information. I think parents at this time of year are getting really excited to send their kids back to school. It's been a great summer. This back to school information was shared at our last board meeting. Has some basic information that's just coming up. I'll pull this up just as a guideline. Some of these things are currently happening. Mr. Demar has been meeting with students for the first 2 weeks of August just to help get the schedules in place. The purpose behind that, this was Mr. Demar's suggestion, was to not have that huge bottleneck on registration day. As we met with our administration team, we were saying, what can we do to be customer friendly to our parents? Like, look at it from a parent perspective, a student perspective, to try not to have long lines. There's things that we looked at and said, what can we do to try to help this be a better process? And Mr. Neymar said, well, let me just have the kids start coming in little by little, and he's seen that, having them come in too.
I think that was a great idea, and I appreciated that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
because it not only is so hectic that first, it almost takes a full week out of school for some kids. They don't have a schedule in the past. It's been so hectic and chaotic, so I think that was a very, very good idea.
So we appreciate that, and especially since you've worked with us in the career and college readiness department, you've seen how hectic that has been. And so those are things that we're trying to go, okay, what can we do? Make some tweaks, make some changes. And so thank you for that comment. Registration for all schools is going to be Monday and Tuesday of next week. For the Territon Elementary and Junior High, it's going to be here in the ALC gym. They'll have just all the areas there. Some of the other things that we looked at last year, we had some transitions in place. We had some complications with COVID that we couldn't really know if we were going to meet with everybody in person. It was just, we had some things that didn't fall in line with that we should have last year. We did not communicate very well about the changes in the junior high sports being under the high school umbrella of the athletic director with junior high on up. In years past, the elementary principal oversaw the junior high sports, but we felt that was stretching the junior high way thin with that one principal. And so with that, it wasn't very clear with where do we pay, how do we pay, where do we go? And that was on us. This year we've learned we're going to say pay wherever you're at. If you're at the high school and you have a junior high kid and high school kids, you can pay those extracurricular fees there. If you only have elementary kids and your oldest is in junior high, instead of making you walk over to the high school to pay, just pay here. Our secretaries will get it figured out with their finances just to make it a little bit easier.
So since there's, just like the junior high, 5th grade, 6th grade, Principal now,
Uh-huh.
will the sports be going back to it since he's not spread as thin with the young
No.
groups?
No, we're gonna keep it still under that umbrella with one athletic director. Because in that way, it was kind of split anyway, because the high school athletic director would still set all the schedules.
Yeah.
But then they just didn't have the budget part to plan on that. So it's just easier to put it all into one round. The principals will still be helping with supervision at games, helping with, student discipline, supporting with the academic eligibility. But that's a good question, but it will still be that route. Already thirsty, this is just the first one. Trying to think if there's anything else. One thing I did want to highlight with the back to school registration, that for the elementary, there's a convenience package available there's either a supply list that we'll send home, the parents can choose to go and buy the supply list, or a convenience package that they can get. My wife likes the convenience package because it's convenient that she'll just pay the district for that convenience package, and it saves her the time to have to go pick out all the supplies
I think it's cheaper.
for that.
I think it's less expensive.
And it might be, but some families like the experience of going out and buying the supplies. The convenience package is one that, at least my family and my wife likes that.
One thing, I had a comment, a parent asked, they had come with their student, and they walked in the classroom, the supplies were already on all the desks, and so she just took the supplies home, and she was kind of, I guess, annoyed at the fact that she chose to do the list, but then all the supplies were already on her student's desk, and so
Yeah.
I didn't know for sure what to tell her, and I don't know how that works, or if we need to do something different that way, but.
Well, I chose to do that for my junior high student,
Uh-huh.
and he got to school with all the stuff and they took it off.
To get in the supply closet.
So I guess that's something we need to.
I'll note that right there.
Oh, I just found out about that, actually, he said, the other day, he's like, I said, don't we have so much stuff left over from last year? Because I'm like, that's an awful lot of pencils and things. And he's like, no, they took them all from me when I took them to school. And I'm like, that's stupid, then I'll have to just pay this, because that does not make sense to me.
So yeah.
Okay, I will, because I know that the district can get them in bulk, and it's a little bit cheaper just because of the quantity. And so we will look into that. So thank you for that comment.
Because I know it's probably convenient for the teachers to have them all set out, because then everybody's ready to go, and they don't know for sure which kids are bringing their supplies in, but.
Yeah.
Like I said, when that mom walked in with her bag of supplies and saw their kids already had the supplies on the desk, she just wasn't sure how that all worked.
Thank you for that question.
And I have a question, but, is there a reason that we do the back to school open house separate from registration? When you bring your kids down for registration, can you not go see teachers then?
Good question.
What's the purpose behind it?
So the purpose behind that is our registration days are starting Monday. Teachers' contract day starts on Tuesday the 17th. And so we want to have that time available for teachers to be able to work in their classrooms and set up their classrooms. And if they're having families and kids coming in at that time, it's disrupting their ability to get the classrooms ready.
In the future, is there any way to do registration on like the Wednesday and Thursday later? So you could combine the two activities? I've just had a couple of parents that asked me what was the purpose of going down twice, like if you're.
The open house is optional. You don't have to come back.
So they could go meet their
It's only if
teacher,
they want to.
like go meet, if they, can they meet their teacher when they do registration then?
You know, some people want to do whatever they want to do, right?
Yeah,
Like we can ask them to do something and people are going to say, well, I'm going to do it my own way. If they're wanting to go and disrupt their teacher getting ready for class, and they feel like that's the most important thing to do, I guess we're not going to have an armed guard in front of there saying, don't go to the classroom.
And that's not what I was saying. I was just
But
saying
we're-
like later on in the week, that they do.
The later in the week, the teachers do have other meetings and things going on during that time. And so that is the scheduled time. So if I'm a teacher and I'm preparing my classroom, our teachers are probably gonna be friendly, and you pop in with your kid while I'm trying to get my classroom ready. I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna smile, but I'm also gonna now have to be disrupted and probably stay later on that time.
But I'm not saying for this year, I'm just saying for future, like, is that something that,
The one, let's look into that. Because registration, there's gotta be a balance between having the teachers have time to do their work. We have other district meetings going on as well. And then trying to plan it where the parents are like, well, I don't wanna come down for registration and then come back just to meet my teacher.
The one thing is
I don't
this
know.
registration takes 2 days. So that will be 2 full days of our teachers being there, where our open house is just 3 hours that they can plan on being able to focus on the students.
And the other thing is the open house, we wanted it to be before school started. Instead of having a back to school night a week after school starts. That doesn't-
I don't have 6 kids in there anymore, so I'm just asking.
Yeah,
I don't care as much about them, but.
the other thing is that some of the teachers will probably have a little welcome gift for their kids on that Friday. And they're not gonna be ready for it on Tuesday, on the first day of their
Just
contract.
mention it, they have to come down every day once they're at school, so.
But they're in sports,
Yes.
the football kids are gonna be coming every single day, the
Yeah,
volleyball
just say
girls.
These weekends.
That's how it started with good kid football practice already, you know, it's like we're off the schedule and then first week of August, 6 o'clock practice.
Yeah, again.
Here we go. I think that's something we can look into, but I can see some complications.
I understand the reason behind it from
Okay.
the educators, but it was just a question.
They
I think
can,
it's lovely this year, it's beautiful. Yes.
it's not, but there's always somebody though that will ask, and it's not wrong to ask. It's not wrong to ask, could it look at that? The things we would have to juggle, district schedules, district trainings, you know, with all of our employees.
You know, their classrooms they move them out for the summer and they just get,
Everything back.
yeah, I mean, it's,
There's a lot of work.
it is.
A lot of work. So there's our open house Friday, 1 to 3:30. Open house, just come meet your teacher. This will help, especially if you have younger kids, to possibly help ease the anxiety of going back to school. When I was administrator at my school, the first year we had to back to school after school started. And that first day of school, I could just, especially the little ones, you know, it was that first one. But the next year we had the open house prior to school starting. And that first day of school, the kids were like, I know where my teacher's at, I know where I'm gonna go, we'll walk into that room, and so it just helped out. The first day is also an early release day. We do have several early release days throughout the calendar. The blended days will all be early release. We'll talk more about what it looks like on those blended days. I'd like to welcome Mindy Raymond coming in. Thank you, Mindy. Looks like you were with the exercise group out there this morning. Where it all starts. So that will be the early release. 2 o'clock is when school will be out on all of our early releases. The Hamer campus is 12:30 on the early releases. Just a reminder, in this back to school information, that just the fee updates that came from our school board meeting in May and after our public hearings, the pay to play, which hasn't made it change since 2013, was changed from $75 to $100 per sport. Cross country will stay $75. The reasoning behind that is they don't have an athletic budget that they need. Activity card, $40 for those participating in sports. Junior high, it still has a $40 pay to play for all sports all the way through. And then activity card, $40 for 7th and 8th grade. Those activity cards are split up to go to the different things for those schools. So the junior high activity card will be put into junior high activities. Their student council will get a portion of it, uniform rotation will get a portion of it, and then high school gate will still get a portion of it, or secondary gate for that.
So the junior high activity cards will get them into the high school games
Yes.
without paying
Yep.
additional.
So what it will look like this year is everybody will have, everybody gets a card, but we have an activity card sticker that will go on that shows that, yes, you have paid that fee, and that's that little sticker on your card is going to get you in.
Did you put the cost, you changed the family passes into cup, right? Didn't you?
Yeah, we did. I didn't put it on this one here. For the family passes,
It's a couple pass now, right? Or an individual, so if you have this, right?
It's a,
So I
or,
want to explain how you did that.
oh.
I'll go look that up.
Do you want to go look that one up? And what was decided on that one?
Because, will you have it so that at registration, people can purchase those? That might be a good idea.
That is one thing that we haven't talked about yet. So Mr. Davis, as you're here, we can mention that. Thank you. That's why we do these things.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because when I helped with registration last year, we did have people that asked if they could purchase.
And it
Yeah.
helps at the first home game, your line.
Keeps that down. So we're gonna get the numbers and we'll have our secretaries be ready to offer that. Mindy, you had a question?
Sixth graders can run cross-country track. Do they pay the junior high pay for it?
No.
They can also wrestle.
Yes, so that's gonna be those are gonna be the junior high sports will sometimes bring in sixth graders.
Okay.
And so they can, and I think they might have even invited fifth graders for cross-country. I don't,
I
Did
asked
they?
Linda, and she said they can run cross-country, but they cannot ride the bus until they're sixth grade.
And they do have
So
some
parents
fourth
want-
grade races too.
So yeah, younger than six can do cross-country, but their parents have to transport them to the races.
yeah, so reasoning behind that is the sixth grade, they're still not in junior high yet.
Right.
And so there's no activity card for them. And
Or they do they play too?
they'll do the pay to
They
play,
play, but
They
not
do
activity
data
card.
but not activity card.
I'm pretty sure it is.
So that's, we didn't know what the best way to do that was. We felt like just separate it, cut it there. I could see it both ways. I could see it say more.
So now sixth grade's not in junior high. We're back to, they're not in junior high?
They're not, they don't rotate with the junior high. When you look at,
But they were considered junior high for a minute.
I think a year, and you could say a minute, when the state reporting, when we report to the state for the time limits that the kids are in school, elementary is K through 6. So all of those time limits are K through 6. And that first year, family pass was 200. So the family pass, individual pass is 75. And a child pass is 50. So this would be for anybody sixth grade and below.
Wasn't there a couple?
We didn't do couple. And part of that was just family dynamics are different.
So I guess it'd just be two individuals would be 100.
Yeah. Family is a 2-parent family with, you know, 5 or 6 different kids. It'd probably be worth it for you to buy the family pass. That's probably the best deal for you. If I'm a single parent and I have one child that's going to be coming, I'm going to buy an individual pass and a child pass because that's going to be $125 and that gets us. So that's why we did it that way.
And what are the restrictions on the family pass? Is there like an age? Is it up to?
It's going to,
Sixth grade.
oh, for your kids?
Right, on the family pass.
Yeah, because 7th graders
Starting.
have to do activity card.
Okay.
And so it's adults in 6th grade and below would be the family pass. Is that right?
I think that's.
I think that's what we've done in the past.
Yeah, that's correct.
The ball games.
Okay, thank you for getting that message,
I'll
John.
get that to Mrs. Davis and I'll send you.
So I was mid-sentence though. What was I talking about before you walked up here? As you were walking up, Carrie. Yeah. We have the sports passes, activity cards.
Oh, sixth grade not being included in.
Oh, yep. So that first year, our schedule, when I say the first year, I guess it's going way back when I first started being superintendent here 2 years ago. The schedule had multiple days where the elementaries were off, but the 6th graders were in. And so as we built that schedule, when we send a schedule or a calendar into the state, they want to know who's coming, which grade levels are covered, and how many hours are they here so they can keep track of all of that. By having the 6th grade come,
they were counted under an elementary, but there's something in the formula that you take 4 through 6, and you take all of the attendance on 4 through 6, and then that counts. So when that went in, on those days, our 4 through 6 attendance went way down. Jimmy gets this because she's seen that side of that with the finances and the ADA from her school board's side of it. And so because of that, our ADA dropped, which means the funding that we get from the formula coming from the state was actually less. So the second year I switched that. I said, well, if we're going to have secondary in, it's going to be 7 through 12, and we put that 6th grade down. It was also that first year, they did have the 6th graders on some type of a bell schedule that was similar with the 7th grade and 8th grade, but it wasn't, not exactly. So as I was trying to find a balance of how do we maximize our ADA, how do we maximize where we're at, that's where we went into the 5th and 6th grade rotation, because their schedule's going to be the same. They're going to share those teachers, but it also benefits the ADA on that. So you're right, 6th grade was considered for a minute that they were in junior high, but that's kind of what led to that change. Our PAW meetings, thank you for joining us on this first one. Next one will be September 8th, all the way through. I won't be able to do an evening meeting this year, just with a lot of different activities and things that I'm stretched with. But we always have a YouTube live, so everybody can join in. But you can also call me, ask me questions on different things as we go throughout. Talk about the different plans that we'll be going over, and we will be reviewing some of these things today, getting input before it's finalized with the board. Blended days, this is a new thing for our calendar that has evolved from some of the things that we learned last year with our COVID calendars. Other districts have also considered these blended days. I know that Bonneville, they had a blended Monday where they allowed kids to come in for intervention. Teachers had professional development, and then they had a half day. I'm not sure exactly how it worked. Mr. Davis, you came from Bonneville, so you saw that. Am I describing that?
Yeah, the Mondays are kind of a blended day where kids can go and get help. So it's kind of like a remediation, or kids just are struggling or missing school.
Did they actually go and have some success with getting kids in?
I think it happens some to the point where they'll consider that the same model. So
Yeah, as I talked with Mr. Wilson, he said that their community liked it. And so they're going to continue to incorporate that this year. When we looked at this, we tried blended days early with COVID, didn't really love it. We got the feedback from the parents, the board. We just decided we're going to be in. If we're going to be in school, we're going to be in school. And so we went away from the blended days when it came to like COVID protocol. But the teachers came to us a little bit later on and said, we need some more time for remediation. Can we try this? And so we tried it a couple of times in November. And again, it was the first time we were trying it. Some things worked really well. Other things were like, how can we change that? But we liked it in the fact that we wanted to try it again this year. And one of the reasons why is because last year our secondary students, 7 through 12, had an intervention or mentoring period. Philosophically, I love the idea of having time to help the kids doing this. Elementary, this is what we have with our walk interventions, and it works really, really well in our elementaries. And we were thinking this will work at our high school. This is something that even when you go to a PLC conference, the solution tree, they talk about you have to have time to intervene and help out with it. Bigger districts can pull it off because they have complete departments of teachers. So they would have 4 to 6 English teachers, and they would have 4 to 6 math teachers, and they could do an intervention period where they could rotate within their group. Us being a small school, we have 1, maybe 2, 2.5. When I say 2.5, because they have a lot of different things. What happened is there were just too many moving parts, too many pieces, that it wasn't efficient and an effective use of time from what we observed. And being true to what I've always said, if it's not working and it's been created by man, it can be changed by man. We can change that. So we are removing the blended days out of the schedule. So the schedule is going to look just 6 periods a day without the
You were
intervention.
Mentoring, yeah, we removed the mentoring hour out. And we still need to have something to say, well, we still have to have some type of intervention time available. So we decided to do that with the blended days. What we're going to do as we meet with our teachers, get more information, this isn't fine-tuned yet, but we're gonna meet with our teachers and we're gonna say, this is what the structure looks like. We want parents and kids to think, or at least assume, I'm going to school on that Friday, unless I am told you can do an alternate learning assignment at home.
So
Question.
how are you going to, relay
Communicate
that to the parents, especially of high school students?
Yes.
Because although I didn't have to worry about it, I know parents that did, and they're like, well, I don't know if my kid needs to be there, and
Yeah.
some aren't as honest.
Yep.
So,
And that's gonna be something that is, you know, as Mr. Davis, I've talked with him, he knows that he needs to go and we need to figure that out. How are we gonna communicate better with our parents? Because parents have to know.
mhm.
If the kids are supposed to be there and they're not, it is counted as an absence. And that, as we get a little bit later in another topic, we need to figure out a way to get back away from the COVID mentality of, I'm sick, I'm gonna leave. And I don't know what the balance is, but I felt like last year, one of the reasons why we stayed in is because we allowed kids who were really feeling sick to stay home. I know that.
I appreciated that.
And it worked, and I think it worked well, with the exception of other kids that were like, I just wasn't feeling well, and they missed 15 days in a trimester.
We go, look, don't do that anyway. Some
They'll
of
just
those
do
kids
Saturday
will do
school.
that anyway.
They
So don't
will.
punish everybody.
I
You know
know,
what I
but
mean?
it's, but how
I
do you
understand,
there's,
but,
if we're loose a little bit, it's loose with everybody.
right,
And so those are the things that
but you still have those kids that will miss regardless.
yeah,
And
And-
you
and
don't
if-
get the board, they will,
yeah.
you have them every year.
But I think we what we've learned,
And the other thing is, I've thought about this.
yeah.
So because of the way it's been set up, if they miss and you want it to be excused as medical, you have to have a doctor's note. You're gonna increase your testing. If you're requiring a doctor's note if they're sick.
So how do I get, because that's a
You
good
know what
point.
I'm saying?
'Cause
Yeah,
what-
like,
Yes,
because
yes.
I think that as a district, and I'm not saying we didn't say don't test, but it was stay home if you're sick, and
Yeah.
you're not
You
going to
don't
have
have
that
to have
day.
that note.
But it's $65 every time I go to the doctor. That's one thing, the cost of having to get the doctor's notes. And then you're going to have more tests.
So, and I think we can dive into this a little bit more when we talk about attendance on them, because I'm with you, Jimmy. It's like, I know one of the reasons why we stay in school is because we allow people to stay home. Here's the double-edged sword on all of it. We are still given funding by attendance,
Right.
not enrollment.
Last year though, they were a little,
They did.
so what are
But-
they looking
but-
this year for?
I would need an 8-ball crystal ball to try to figure out what's in
Well,
there.
they're
And
changing
put it
that.
there.
Because I know that they
There
went
is
back.
one in Carrie's office, she's got one back.
There's no crystal ball there, but as we look at it, the state board has made indications that they might change the rule for this year to be back to enrollment,
They haven't said that for sure yet.
but they haven't done it
Well,
for sure.
where you've got some
But-
districts going back to that.
So that just illustrates how difficult it is for us to make a real solid plan, to say, yeah, this is exactly what we're going to do, when the rules and the target that we play by to receive our funding changes. And it changes based on political agendas, fractions, people that are for public school or against public school. There are so many different things that come into play that make this position difficult to say, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to do it. So there's two sides to that. There's the funding side to it when it comes to that. And there's a chance, I don't know how good it is, that the state board meets, and I think it won't be till the 25th. So school's already started, where they could come in and they say, we are suspending the attendance rule and we're gonna give you enrollment for funding. That could happen. If that happens, then we probably can have some flexibility on, hey, if you're sick, stay home. The second piece of that is academically. What does that look like when kids are missing a lot from their academics? And so that's the part where we're trying to go, like, let's get the mindset away. And I'm not, we all know there are parents out there that will do this. They don't want to fight their kid to get them up in the morning. And they'll just let them miss because there's a battle going on. And I'm not criticizing those parents because sometimes that's just life. Sometimes you're done talking to them. I don't want to talk to them anymore. But those same parents will come in and say, yeah, they were sick. Because it's easier for the parent just to put it that way instead of saying, no, it's not. He wasn't sick. He was just being a pain in the butt. Because now the kid's going to be faced to almost missing credit. And then that's the part is, okay, for miss, how lenient should we be as a district with just giving everybody a pass? I think that COVID mentality with our kids is I'm just going to sit back and do the least amount that I need to, and this community and this society is going to give me a pass. And so I'm going, where do we raise the bar back up and say, no, we need to have people who are ready to come to work, people who can be successful when you're out on your own. If we don't have that, our country is going to be in trouble. And so on one hand, we look like we're saying, okay, we're going to hold you to it, but we're preparing you guys for something. And so that's where we need supportive parents, but it's tricky, isn't it? This is not. Mindy, you have a comment.
Okay, so here's something I try to do with my kids. I really like my doctor's office. They want me to wait 3 days. If my kid has a fever for 3 days, then I take them in. They're really down to earth doctor's office. They're like, don't bring them unless they've had a fever for 3 days or these symptoms or whatever. And they're saying stay home because if we bring them into their doctor's office, they got to sneak us through the back door so no one else gets whatever germs my kids have. And I get that. I like being that way and I like not having to have the doctor's note. But every time my kids were sick, I called and came down and got their work.
Yeah.
And they did that at home. Their teachers did not have to catch them up because when they were feeling better or when they were feeling up to doing a little bit here and there, we did a little bit here and there so that their teachers didn't have to do that. And I know that some kids you're not going to get them to do that. I'm pushy. I'm mean. That's my kids. Those are me. But at the same time, my kids are learning to be responsible for that. It's not the school's job to teach them something that they missed. It is their job to learn it because they missed it. Doesn't matter if they were sick. Doesn't matter if they were out because they wanted to go herd cows. It doesn't matter if they, whatever. It's their job to learn that. So
I wish there was a way we could,
It's like-
because I like what you're saying about being responsible. Because like going back to Jimmy's example of, it's been helpful because I don't want to have to send them in for a $60 copay or more, just to get a note to prove that they were sick, that I'm not lying. Because on one hand, we want to trust, just like parents want to trust us. You know, it's like it goes both ways, and I don't know. It's something to do like it's almost like if I have an employee, I want to think about this in a way that our employees should be responsible as well. And we should trust that if an employee shows up late one day, probably because something happened. They don't want to be on their case every single second that they've been gone. But if an employee is showing up late every single day, you know, it becomes an issue for the company or for the for the class. But if I'm sick and I'm responsible and I go back to the teacher and say, can I give me what I missed? I'll go look it up. I'll show up early and come in here if I need to, or set up a time to come out here and finish it. Those aren't the kids that we're worried about.
Right, or the parent.
It's actually like,
Yeah, that's not, those aren't the ones that we're concerned going, okay, I'm worried about these guys. It's the ones that you know, the kids are sick, they don't turn in any work. Those are the ones that are going, how do we help them? So I don't know. Andy, you have
I
a,
think that it's a balancing act between being lenient with attendance versus lenient with expectations. We don't have to lower our expectations of what they're doing and what the assignments are. Just if they're gone, it's still expected to be done. I think that last year there were some times that if kids were gone, that like, oh, give them more time to get caught up. And sometimes they are really legitimately, and my Maggie was 15 days at least, like down flat. So it did take her a little bit too long. But most of the time if they're sick, they can come back and work and get stuff done quickly. And I think that you can raise those expectations while still being a little more lenient.
and I think, like I said, initially we're gonna want to try to figure out a way, like we hear on the news, the COVID variant, everything else is coming back. I don't know if it's scare tactics. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's because, you know, it's hard to tell because we were in school all year last year with very few disruptions. We only had a couple of disruptions the whole year. You know, you look at these other places that are having the spikes, is that because they weren't in school? Is that because they were isolated and now they're finally starting to get out and it's coming in? And I don't know. You can read different things that say that certain variants are more transmissible. How do they really know that? Like, how do they know that in a
So when I
turnaround
read
that state?
it was because the viral load in the newspaper.
There's two variants coming up.
There's going to be variants forever. We've had flu variants. We're not like we have a year of bad flu. We're not going to come in and say, hey, the new flu variants will be bad. It's still new because it's still COVID and it's still political. That's the thing is because it's mixed with political, it makes it really difficult to come in and say, all right, because one group's going to say you're not giving it enough credibility, and other groups are like, you just need to ignore it completely. We need to have the balance to say it's real. We know we have people in our community who have passed away from COVID. I've had family members who've been really sick with COVID. It's one of those things that yes, it's here, but I don't think life goes on. I agree with you, Andy. Like life goes on. We've got to figure out that balance, and having that balance of if you're sick, stay home. We trust you. It's just one of those things that when we start getting taken advantage of, how do we do that? Because the kids talk. The kids know. The kids will be like, oh, I'm sick. And
Is there
it's that.
someone that would contact the parent, you know, if you feel that a kid is just kind of pulling the wool over, somebody contact the parent and say, hey, you know this is going on, or?
It was harder last year because of
Oh, yeah.
that, but we do have attendance secretaries that track that and call. I think what we really need to do is, especially last year, we've had 1 year with a pandemic to learn. Our goal is to do similar things this next year. The question we wanted to ask and look at is, with attendance, should we try it and see, try to hold people to the standard, and then if they go past it, take it as expectations as they come, and then, because we can always revisit as a school board, revisit and come in and say, hey, this just isn't working. Because the purpose of this is to not punish kids. We don't want to punish kids. We want to keep kids safe, but we also want to have the expectation that I want you guys here. I want your kids here at school every single day. And I think with that, the attendance policy, which we will talk about as we'll get to it. What's happened is kids think I have 5 days that are my free. They're my 5 freebie days.
Spend.
Yeah.
I still have 3 days to spend.
I have 5 days to spend, but the mindset has been, people they're sharing stories about how it really is because they're high school kids, but that was the mentality. I have 5 days to spend, but I was sick these days and I got medically excused. I still have 5 days.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that can't be, like, if we did that with our teachers, imagine running a company where it's like, okay, you guys have your vacation time and you can take it, but you also get your 12 sick days and you can just use them however you want to because you have it to spend before the end of the trimester. And so how I want to look at it this year is that they have 5 days. And if I'm sick for 5 days, it's still 5 days. I don't have 5 extra days. It's not an excused absence.
Well, I think that's how it was.
It's a verified, I think that's how it was, but I think that's how it evolved. And there's some wording that changed. There's some wording that changed on it, Janine. I think it's from excused absence. When you hear the word excused, I think some people started interpreting that as, that means you take it away.
I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, if it was an extended period of time, like you wouldn't lose all 5 days. Say you were sick for a week, longer, like it was like 3 days, so you still had 2 days.
So I think
But the 3 days did count. I can't remember.
the reason why 5 days comes up is there is in code, for us to 90% attendance is what they say. And in our trimesters, 5 days is approximately the 90% for each trimester. And so that's kind of where we wanted to get the gauge to start, say you get 5 days. Now, if you had extenuating circumstances, administration and school board members can always, the school board as a whole, administration can make decisions, say, you know what, yeah, let's have this plan, this is what we'll do, and it's not gonna count against you. But if we can keep everybody focused on, okay, the 5 days, I wanna work extra potato harvest, I wanna make sure that I'm a little tired this morning, I better get my backside out of bed, get to school, because I know I'm gonna be using it for potato harvest. That's just a good work ethic, that's just good planning on that, so, anyway.
So the excuse part is mainly your parents know that you're missing that day of school. It's not that you're.
And we're gonna call it verified.
Okay, that sounds better.
It's a verified absence. That means the parent knows where you were at. Whether the parent agreed with the kid or not, the parent verified that my kid was sick.
I know my child.
Because if not, then it's a truant situation where they were suffering.
So there used to be some type of a system that if you're, like if the teacher, your student was marked absent, the parent would get a notification.
I'm not sure, I'll have to look into it, because we had those at my previous
But
district.
I haven't
It's
seen
a
it last few
setting on
years.
your Power School, so if you have the app on your Power School, you can make the setting, then it will notify you.
Either text or email.
Okay,
It's handy.
because I used to get the notifications, but then I stopped getting them and I didn't know what happened there, so.
Check your settings, refresh.
Clear your cache.
Another thing, are you still keeping parent or Power School?
Yes.
Okay, so for the parents, that will still be our.
So Power School, there's two sides to it, where you have the learning management system and then the school information system. So Power School is where we'll still take attendance, historical grades, all of that information. With the LMS, which is Otis, that is going to have the grade book and other communications with the learning. So some teachers that become more proficient with it will be able to have assignments there. And so that's, if you want to know what the grades are, you go to Otis. Attendance will be Power School. We're still looking into, since it's new, and I can't promise it here, I'm hoping that our attendance might be able to be taken in Otis and then shared with Power School. So then that way it streamlines it, because we're trying to make it simple for parents, but it's going to take us a little bit of time to see what all the functions are in Otis.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Before you scroll down any further, we had early release, they were 12:30.
Yeah.
You know, the other 2 p.m.
Yes.
Is that because of distance or because of the fact that we don't have upper grades?
Both.
Okay.
It's going to be both. That's a good question. Where the time requirements for different levels of the schools, elementary, the lower they are, they only have certain time limits. So that's one reason why Hamer can be a little bit shorter in the day. But we also have one bus route that will take Hamer kids first, and then they'll finish off down here in Tarleton, and then that same driver will run another route in the night.
Okay.
So that allows for both of it. So it allows us to maximize our bus drivers. And
Hamer does start.
they start at 7:45. The part of that is also because of busing, because we'll drop off at 7:45, they start school, and then they come down to Tarleton. Good question, thank you. All right, we'll go, so the approved calendars, you've seen these, so I'll just quickly just highlight them. You can see that we did start on a Monday, but that was because we wanted to have the trimester end before Thanksgiving. We could have started on a Wednesday, but it would have pushed it back. There's always just a little give and take. There's always things on here, and like I said, I don't make these for my own. I try to find a balance on what people do. So like, I work all the time anyway, so it doesn't matter. The teal days are our teacher professional days as part of our PLCs. They've been very helpful for us to be able to focus our time on that. We will have a parent-teacher conference on Mondays. We're trying it different this year, partly because in years past, when we've had parent-teacher conferences on other days, we have teachers that are gone because of sports. And there were times last year where, unfortunately, we had one teacher who wasn't here at all on any parent-teacher conference day. So we're gonna have them all day long. There's no school on those days for the kids. And then you'll see that the last 4 available Fridays are the blended days. And then more information will come out as we visit with our teachers. But Mr. Davis, if you can remember, parent communication is going to be key on those days. And then students are still able to come. I think this can be a very positive thing as we move forward. I'm hoping that it will grow in that direction where we can really help the kids that need the extra help. But it also might be times where if I'm in advanced welding, for example, and I want to crank out 4 or 5 hours in the welding shop, that would be a perfect day to do that, assuming that I'm up to date with everything else. If I have only one teacher that I have to come in and see, and I'm a secondary student I can come in, finish what I need to do, go to the office, check out with parent permission. You know, so there's things that they can do on those days, as they don't have to come and be all day long if we have parent permission. Everything has to go through parents where we know where kids are at, where they're safe. Do you have a comment, Jeff?
Yeah, someone brought up parent notifications and how we can reach out that way. There is a way you can select. So you take all the students that maybe need remediation that day and they need something on their backlog and some assignments. You can create a list that can send out to all those parents that says, hey, your student needs to attend this day, and those students
Because one of the things is to train our parents to make sure their power school is up and running and everything, like all of those things are updated.
Or parents can just say, I'm assuming that your kid's going until, because the kids might also get an email. And also, there might be a way for us to even show the kids where they're at. So if the parent doesn't trust the kid, you can say, well, show me the note from your teacher that says you don't need to come in. It could go both ways. So the parents should assume to send their kids unless they hear differently.
And I would say just a quick follow-up. Do you have as preferred ways that you want communication? Or to make that happen? There's certain ways you want to be communicated with that will work for you, or you know will work for your kid. Alex.
It's listed on the registration paper,
Yeah, right.
so maybe when, make sure that like Joanna tells people, hey, this is how we will be contacting you, or just, especially freshmen,
Yes.
yeah, make sure that
you're right there.
they have the.
Can parents also, can this also be a regular day if parents need the kids in
Yep.
school?
Regular day. So let's say my kid is on task, doing everything. It's going to be an early out, so 1 to 2 o'clock. But let's say that I do work. We have two parents that are working, but our kids are straight A, perfect kids on that when it comes to that regard. Send them.
Okay.
Yep, send them. Like they can come to school. They'll have the. Some of the brainstorming things that we've had is that we'll have a extended learning activity for those kids. And so it will be a student choice. What we're looking for is a target of about 4 hours of instruction time for those kids to do something. One of the brainstorm ideas that we had was that there would be like a learning bingo board, if you thought about it that way. And you could have your different subjects up at the top and then different activities that the kids could choose. And you'd say, all right, on this first blended day, you choose 4 of those things to do. And so then that way the kids will have some choice. Some of it might be something that's interactive with parents, but not always contingent on that. And it doesn't have to be sit down and do this for 4 hours of the time clock next year. It's going to be more of find a way to do that, and probably have just a reflection paragraph or reflection sentence or something on what you learned from that. So the teacher can verify that you at least did that extended activity. Because that's how we're going to do attendance for those kids. And so, I'll give you, so an example would be like this. My son stays home because he's given the opportunity to do an extended activity. How does the teacher know that he did an extended activity? He has to have some type of thing that comes back. The teacher isn't necessarily going to give a grade on it, but they will track it. And so if my son doesn't do it at all, the teacher's going to track it and say, you didn't complete your learning activity, you probably need to come to school next time on the blended day. Because you're not taking advantage of this extended learning activity.
But is there a problem we need to do, going to be incentive enough for some older kids?
It might, but if they don't do it, we invite them to the next, we don't give them the option the next time.
They kind of lost their privilege. It's a
Yeah.
privilege to.
It's a privilege to do that. If they don't do it, they don't hand it in, they come.
Right.
You know, they've got to come back and
Probably
prove.
only take months of that.
I was gonna say that.
That's just how it goes.
Okay.
So just a thought that's going through my head as you're explaining that, when we were doing, and some of the teachers came out and said, well, these won't be graded, we're not, that was a huge thing for parents. Like, what are we doing this for? And I know it's tracking.
Yeah.
But is that going to give the teachers, is that going to be harder to keep track of, okay, this student didn't do it last time, so they have to come, and this student did it, and so they're okay, and this student really needs to come because they need more help? I mean, is that going to be more tracking for the teachers if they don't just grade everybody on those
Because
blended day assignments?
you could do it either way. This was, like I said, this was a brainstorm idea with the option. But I also don't want it just to be busy work either
Right.
for kids. And so we'll probably have some teachers that want to try it that way. And if they do, you know what, parents, just be ready for from this class, this is what's expected. But I also don't want kids that have 5 or 6 classes going on. I don't want each teacher loading up a mega assignment for the kids to be going out and trying to learn new material.
Right.
Because that's not the best way to teach new material. We've learned that through the remote learning.
Yeah.
New material is not taught well, not in front of a teacher. So it should be something that is reviewed. And
Well, plus your kids that are at school doing their remediation or whatever,
Yes.
they're behind them.
yes,
They're
They're
starting
further
to try to do other.
exactly.
Maybe
Yeah,
new
you're
assignments.
catching, that's the exact vision that we have. Okay.
But isn't that taking away 20% of the kids learning by having these many days then, rather than 5 days?
So if you're measuring learning by day, and that's going to be the thing that's different, is we're focusing on standards that we know that these are all the standards that we need to get to. We're not breaking it down into day. One day does not always equal an exact standard. But mathematically, you're right, it's 20% difference in the approach on where they're having a learning opportunity. Does that help?
Yeah.
Explain that.
So are those days counting as our days in the year?
Mhm.
So they count for attendance? even
Yep.
though we're not.
They count for attendance
Because they're tracked.
because we're tracking it.
So by doing their blended day activity, the teacher then goes into the attendance and says, yes, they were here that day because they did that.
That's where it's graded at. It's graded by tracking.
By tracking the attendance.
So if they do it, give them 100%, if they don't do it, give them a 0, then you've at least got,
Complete, non-complete.
Yep.
maybe that's easy to track, yeah.
Yes. That's this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mindy.
So, as school starts, I think we need to have a page that makes perfectly clear that this is a school day. Because I know, with some of the days, like when kids were out or parents had to be sent home, some of the teachers were like, why am I doing this? Because these parents don't care or whatever, because they weren't getting back what they needed.
Mhm.
It needs to be a line run in the sand. This is what it is. So that everybody is on the same playing field when we start. You know, we're here, we're listening to it now, but we need to make sure that.
I have 4 parents here that know this.
Yes, but we know,
It's a
you
good
know,
start.
but it's not everybody listens to these and that kind of stuff, so it would be nice to have something sent home that says, hey, plan on your kids coming to school these days, they will be taking attendance either via the work that you do at home,
Yeah.
or you actually attend the school.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And the kids, the students need to really, especially your older ones.
Yeah.
Because they caught on pretty fast with what was going on
With-
last year
yeah.
and stuff, and so, yeah, it just needs, and follow through. There's not been much follow through for a while, and so that will be a huge, whether this will
Whether this will work or not.
Successful or not, yeah.
And we're hoping that it will be, because those students that do come in on those days, they're gonna get a huge benefit. And the students who have been on track with everything else, that's gonna also be a reward in and of itself. That we're saying, okay, it's not a day off, it's a day to go out and still learn in a different way or learn something differently, so.
You know, it's Mindy's idea, all they you'd have to do is just do an explanation page and hand those out at registration.
Just something that says.
We're not ready for registration yet though, because these blended days are not,
They're
they're down the road. If I hand this out right now, parents are gonna go like this, and they're gonna have a stack of pages, and it's gonna go there.
But not like before your first blending
Yes.
day, whatever. Anyway, just send them out and say, hey, this is what we're expecting out of these days.
Yep.
Because I think if you make it perfectly clear to the students and the parents, this is what it is, and you're tracked by this,
Yes.
then otherwise it takes one of your 5 days for, it will be easier to lay out that line and follow through if it's clear.
And we have several professional development days that our administrators are going to meet with the teachers. So the teachers can be clear, because that's gonna be important, that everybody's understanding what is it that the district's vision is, okay? Can the administrators get that to the teachers? And then the teachers will have to explain that clearly and simply to the students, and then we'll also get that out to parents. So, very good. I do have just for the information, the bail times and schedules.
Look at that, I had, parents ask me on Facebook, and I didn't know how to answer them, what the preschool and kindergarten early out times were.
Maybe pull that one up then about the preschool. So our regular days, school starts at 8:10 for elementary in Carrollton, and it ends at 3:35. The early out days, that would be the first day of the school year, are blended days, and usually the last day of the trimesters are also going to be at 2 o'clock out. So it's 8:10 to 2 o'clock. The kindergarten, this would be also preschool. Kindergarten and preschool follow the same schedule. 8:10 start, 11:25 is when the AM ends. 12:20 is when the PM starts, and 3:35 is when it ends. The early out days, which would be those Fridays or the first day of school, 8:10 to 10:30, 11:40 to 2 o'clock.
These buses run all these
I need to fix your
11:30 schedules and all that.
That, so
Well, you know,
we have limited midday transportation for those, and so the buses will have, the bus department will have to put that out, but mostly the parents will bring the kids at 11:40 or pick them up at 10:30 on those days.
Okay.
Is that clear? This answers it, doesn't it, Julie?
Yes, and those are exact same times as preschool.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Exact same times as preschool, whereas the secondary, they have a regular schedule and an early out schedule. The regular schedule, as you can see, as we mentioned earlier, does not have the mentoring advisory period in there. It's just period 1 through 6. To get this to work, and also to work with all of the other lunches in the district, it will be 15 minutes later for lunch. Last year it was around 12:30 to 1 for lunch. It's going to be 12:45. We do have a nutrition break that's in between first and second period, so that's available if kids want to bring their own sandwich or get one from the school lunchroom. They'll be able to do that. I did hear just from my emails yesterday that the school lunch, USDA will be offering free reduced lunch to everyone for another full year.
Is that also breakfast?
I believe it's breakfast as well. So that's one thing where I'm looking at, yeah, that is a later lunch than we've been used to, but with this new bell schedule, I was able to extend it by,
I was gonna say, it's a little longer.
It's longer.
I
That-
appreciate
and
that.
that was something that, as you guys shared that during the PAW meetings, thinking, okay, just check that one off. So it is a little bit longer, I think it's 37 minutes on that one. Mindy, question?
So are you planning on flopping that schedule at all for sports days? You did it once last year, and that would happen to be the only day I slept in secondary, but. Sounds right.
We haven't yet.
Thanks for some.
Everybody in here is almost a substitute. Andy, we need to get you on the substitute list.
Yeah.
You're a former teacher, you can just fall right into it. We haven't, Mindy, but that's something that I think we could look at. So Mindy's question was, have we ever thought
We
about
used to do that.
Yeah,
flip
we used to
flopping
do that.
When
those?
I was in school,
Mhm.
and then I was talking to one of the teachers after I said that day, because it was confusing about get off. I hadn't been on a regular schedule, if that makes any sense. But, we used to do that, and it helped with sports absences, like not missing
Last
class.
year.
So-
No,
I
and
think
junior
about
high,
that.
like, last
It
year,
doesn't be every time, but.
our junior high boys basketball team missed 2 days. They had all away games 1
The
month,
whole month.
and they missed 2 days every week in math. Not helpful.
There are students though that have stacked their schedules so that their easier classes are at the end of the day because they know they're gonna be gone for
We
sports.
didn't get to pick our schedules though.
Yeah, junior high.
And, well, even in high school,
High school didn't either.
the kids used to be able to pick their schedules. They saw the master schedule and they could do that, and it was very helpful, but they can't do that now. And
Yeah,
that
there's a lot
is,
of different constraints with being able to build it because
Yeah.
we're trying to get people to go to different, we had to choose, we want to get the kids the classes they want, or do we want to get the kids the period they want? And that's really the trade-off. Do you get the classes you want, maybe in a period you don't love, or do you get the period you want, which creates other types of constraints? And so, other things I don't know, Mindy, as we're looking at this, because it's, we can still explore it. We're not ready to pull it off this year. I think this is something, an idea that we can let, like, just kind of ruminate a little bit and just see where it takes us. Other things, though, is we do have some dual credit options that are only at a certain time, and then that would throw it off as well. But I think we might be able to pull off some of them where maybe we switch 6th period and 1st period. Even if it was just that,
Yeah.
or even
That would
fifth,
help a little with that.
1st and 2nd with 5th and 6th. Like, we'll look at that. We won't obviously ready to roll this like right now, but it's something that we could probably even do later in the
Especially if you've got
Yeah.
kids that have like a month of away games and they're missing a couple times a week.
Yeah.
I think it would help relieve some of that stress.
Good suggestion. We'll do that. So we have the regular, then we have the early out. Early out day does have a little bit shorter lunch, but we figured that'd be the best. It's a trade-off with that. And we do have an assembly schedule ready for the secondary schools, so the 7th and 8th. So on an assembly schedule, they will, instead of having an assembly that says, hey, assembly's 4th hour, that doesn't mean that 4th hour now just gets taken out. We go from 65 minutes to 50 minutes for each class to create an assembly schedule. Whereas,
That's really smart.
We
I
used
like
to
that.
have
I,
yeah,
That's
we've had
nice.
it before. So we will have so assembly A schedule allows for a 50-minute or 55-minute assembly. We purposely did not put that next to lunch because kids disappear on early lunch. Don't know why. I don't get that. But then your 5th and 6th period are exactly the same. You don't lose anything there. So these guys get 50 minutes, you have that, everybody still gets a little bit of class time. The assembly B schedule, your first part of the day is all the same, and then 5th and 6th period drops down to 50 minutes to have a little bit shorter. So that way you have 2 different options. Administration, student council, that's one of the things that we missed out on last year with COVID. We were told don't have big assemblies, and we didn't, and it hurt school spirit. It really did. And so that's something that as we've talked with administrators, they're gonna have that this year. All right. I didn't bring up Hamer's, but it also has theirs as well. On that one, it's just early out. So we're gonna move on. Just another information back to school, online options for West Jefferson. IDLA is Idaho Digital Learning Academy. I don't know if they changed Alliance. I don't know if it's Academy. They've changed it, I think. Acronyms get changed all the time. It's been around for our secondary schools for a long time. I think since 2002. They now have a full K through 12 option. And so what this is for, why I want to bring this up, if you have any friends who are homeschooling their kids and they want to be homeschooled, but I want to take them to drama class or I want to take them to music class, this is going to be the best way for you to still homeschool your kids and then come to school. Because what we are asking parents to do is consider enrolling your student full-time as a West Jefferson student with an IDLA option. So what that will look like, if I'm a parent and I, for whatever reason, whether it's COVID or I just like to be with my kids, or I, could be for whatever reason, my son doesn't do very good socially, but I wanted to have a little bit at the same time, just for whatever reason, it just isn't working out. We want to have a balance. We want to make sure that there's a choice for parents to still be part of the school district, take advantage of our opportunities of music, of PE, of art, the things that are maybe a little bit tricky to do at home. So we would come to school, you would call us up, there's this information right here. This just has all the information of what it looks like. The student would be enrolled as a West Jefferson student. We would track their attendance through here. The funding from the state would flow to West Jefferson, which means the student can go in and out of the IDLA, or they have the right to be in class at any time that they want to. We just work it out with them. The school district will pay all of the IDLA requirements or the fees for that. If the student needs a technology device, we will give them a technology device to use at home on that. And so it's just an option for parents that want to have a connection to the school, but maybe not be enrolled full-time. And now they have a K through 12 option, and it's easier for us just to keep it all under IDLA. Last year's elementary option was with some other online schools, but then we have IDLA at the high school, and then other options for the elementaries. This year would work for anybody K through 12. So I don't know if there's any questions or thoughts.
So do you require a certain amount of actual credits from West Jefferson to graduate from West Jefferson along with the class?
That's something that we have not, because I don't see this as being a big issue at the secondary level right now. But that's a question that we will have to answer. And then that's going to be something that I'll bring to the school board to say, with this option that we have, because what it does is it really keeps the community together instead of having groups that like, I'm just going to be out here, and then we don't want them to feel shunned from the school community. We want them to come in, and we had people that were doing that with other online schools.
But we did run into problems with the kid then wanting to walk, but they only had taken like one class here, so they're really not a West Jefferson grad. Right. So that's what I asked.
We'll have to explore that. That's something that I hadn't thought about.
But this would mean that they are a West Jefferson grad.
This would mean that they're it would just be that they're the West Jefferson grad with a majority of online learning.
But still part of the West Jefferson family.
And so I guess it just depends on whether or not we need to differentiate it.
Well, just if you have others that are doing not this way, are you going to require, because this isn't, I know there's at least one family and they doing kind of a model like this.
Right.
And the graduation thing would come up. And so if they didn't do the IDLA and they were doing this other, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you just might be prepared for that.
I think that it's.
If this is available, I can see them But, like I said, this family's done it this way for a while, so.
That's a really good question. Don't know the answer to it right now, but if we're going back, let's go back to the mission statement. Small school, big opportunities, endless possibilities. Why does it have to be always just, you need to be here every single day in this school? On one hand, that's us telling them, your opportunity should look like this. And that doesn't need to be that way. We can take it a different direction, but we'll need to look at it, and if it's all through IDLA, it's an Idaho-approved school, it's one that we have, a relationship with it and doing that. Good question, thank you. We'll look into that. Other questions or thoughts as this has come up, problems, issues that
No. It's processing, I'll ask later,
but it is something that, what helps is with the IDLA, and if they're still connected with the school, potentially these kids could come in on blended days for extra assistance. There's students who might be on a individual education program like an IEP. They would still have the support of the IEP team from West Jefferson with that. Whereas if I'm a student, if my son who's on an IEP is on a different online school, and the online school might be in South Idaho somewhere, and I'm taking that teacher's gonna know that my son's on an IEP, but they're never gonna see a teacher, ever. They're just gonna say, what are the accommodations? What are the things we need to do? They'll make the accommodations that way, but there's no other support. This one here, they will have an online teacher, but they also have the connection to West Jefferson. And so if there's a student on an IEP, they could say, hey, we're struggling with this one. Is it okay if we come in on the blended days? Is it okay if my son comes in during a study skills class to work on this? Those are things that we want to explore and go down that route. So I can see though that we need to make sure we clarify graduation requirements.
Only the students coming from my advanced science classes, the homeschool students, especially for the lab classes and all, will they pay an extra fee or is that all covered?
If they're a West Jefferson student, they're enrolled, they wouldn't.
Okay.
They would only have to pay the same fees that other West Jefferson students pay. Wouldn't be any extra.
So is this more of like a whole school year? Is it kind of an all or nothing? Or could you do online for, say, the first trimester and then come to school?
For semesters.
Semesters.
Oh, semesters, okay.
Yeah, IDLA classes are built on semesters, which doesn't equally mesh with ours,
Some secondary classes are,
If
but
they
you're
split the
correct.
class,
but not
but not all.
very many.
There are a couple that they offer on a trimester, it's usually Southeast Idaho that has the trimester systems.
There's not very many.
So they have what are called the cohort classes, which follow the semester, and the students have due dates for each assignment, and then they have flex courses where they work at their own pace, so they could do that within a trimester.
Yeah, you've had
There is
some
a problem
cases.
with the flex courses if you're an athlete, and that means if you're going to go on and play college ball,
Uh-huh.
the NCAA does not
Recognize.
recognize flex courses. And so when we've had some athletes go on and play, it's important that they know that. They won't.
They won't still recognize that.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm excited about this option here with IDLA. All right. Stakeholder consultation feedback. I've been getting feedback the whole time. It's been great. Safe return to school plan. This is a required document that we met with the school district. And we had to have it in place by August 2nd, but it can, as part of it, it needs to be reviewed. So the process of this is to not have it perfect before it's there. This is what it looks like, but we change it as we go. And so it's just like we're flexible with that. So instead of having to go and read through every little thing on this one, our guiding principles: keep students safe and healthy, balance the health safety of students with the social emotional well-being of them to attend school in face-to-face environment. We want to be in school. As superintendent, we want to be in school. Build a plan that has flexibility, adaptability, and options for our patrons and staff. Work with parents and have clear lines of communication. Our plan will be reviewed with board members and stakeholders biannually with that. As we look through all of these things, not one place will we say it's mandated to be vaccinated or to wear a mask, but we will encourage those that have it to do it, to choose. If you choose to do it, do it. If I'm not going to go around and I'm not going to ask who's been vaccinated. We're going to offer vaccinations here. We've had vaccinations here. Our staff's been vaccinated. Some of them have, some of them have chosen not to. This is a personal choice, and there's risk involved with personal choice with that. The part, and this is going to tie back into our conversation on if you're sick, stay home. That's the part that we still want. I'm not sure to look at that, but if we start to have high transmission of COVID in our community again, we'll have to look at that. And what we did last year and what this plan talked about is if we're starting to see transmission within the school. Other districts have gone in and identified what transmission looks like, and they've given it a number, and they've said when we see 6 or 7 people transmitting it between each other, that's our indicator. I'm not sure what the science is behind that, so I haven't been like.
I haven't been picking up the store.
And how do you know? And so I think what we'll do is we'll look at it and we'll identify, okay, so where's this transmission going? What are the risks at it? And last year it was successful. We didn't shut them down for 14 days. We shut them down for probably 3 days and a weekend.
Right.
You know, those are things that we still might have to do. But right now, I think we move forward. The plan is almost identical. I did forget to change that again. That's just say 21. Mrs. DeGraw, can you really make a note
Yeah,
of
lean it back
that
to
one
last
there?
year's. But like you said, hinted to a little earlier, we might be better out because we were in school all year and we
Yeah.
built up those immunities, so we might be, I'm hoping.
I'm
Cross your
hoping,
fingers.
I'm hoping as well. And again, it depends on which media outlet looks at it, you know, whether somebody's pushing vaccines or not. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not against vaccines, but I'm also not in favor of forcing everybody to have a vaccine. It's a personal choice. If you're gonna, I chose to get it, but I'm not going to force somebody else to do that. So, other than that, everything in here is meeting the requirements that we have. Is there any other feedback that you guys? What do you guys want us to do when it comes to COVID back to school safety plans?
Just
Keep going with what we're doing. Do you have any other suggestions?
I think we did a good enough.
Base our reaction on what's happening here, not on Eastern Iowa, North of our recommendations.
Okay.
I thought they came together.
I had a visit with my doctor about it, and she said especially this year with this new variant, the hand sanitizer and making sure the kids are, their hygiene again.
Hygiene.
My big thing with sports. Yeah, if coaches could encourage just a baby bit,
Some of those services, they kind of like out on that with us. I'll just say like on that all over the place.
I don't know, but the hand hygiene maybe, you know, at halftime maybe, everybody on the way out. And I know it sounds, but maybe just taking a few more precautions.
Okay. That's good
Keep
feedback.
And
our
water
teams healthy.
bottles.
Keep the teams healthy longer. We want that. We don't have 85 kids playing. We
No,
have
we
smaller
are bare
teams.
minimum.
We want our football team all healthy, not 12 out.
You know, that would be another thing to do, put those big bottles of sanitizer.
That's easy to get.
by the
No,
water.
it's easy to get, but
Doing it.
to have them actually utilize it, that's another thing.
Yeah,
We should put it in the locker room.
the coaches would have to
Yeah.
say.
And I know that with the younger kids, if you remind them, it just becomes a habit. Like,
Yeah.
in the kindergarten last year, I spent a lot of time in there, and every one of those kids knew, don't touch your nose. If you need to blow it, you go blow it, and you use your hand sanitizer. I mean, there was times that they would whisper, you go put that hand sanitizer on. I got you, let me finish what I'm doing. We couldn't blow my nose, but they knew, and every teacher, coach is kind of on them, at least to start until it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Every time we leave, we do this, and then that we do this, you know?
So
I did this before.
hand washing and hygiene, that's what I'm hearing here. Local control, local decision, and that's something, and that's exactly what we did last year, and I think it was more on the media side from Eastern Idaho Public Health, or more on the city side of things that, like from the school side, they were great with us. When they communicated with us, they never mandated one thing to us. But I think it was more city councils that were doing some of the mandating with the masks and but from the school side of it, not once did I felt pressure, I think, from like potential media presence. It's like, oh, what are you gonna do? Because it was so new. None of us had ever went through that. It's like, who's gonna?
And you were constantly getting phone calls wanting you to outline everything you were going to do.
Every little thing, I'm thinking, well, right now, we don't have anything here. So why should we change, you know? It's
Just give them this.
just giving this.
Just
So,
like, here, you have all the information I have. Enjoy it, you know?
well, that's good feedback. Other feedback? Okay, we'll keep going with it. Thumbs up, all right, not even raising your hand. This next one here is going to be ongoing as well. I don't even, what does ARP stand for?
American Recovery.
Thank you. And so these are, so this is where the federal dollars did flow to us. And I don't want to get into a political thing, because I know that sometimes you're like, okay, we're getting inundated with it, but they're available to us. Our district has this available. Some of this, 20% of this money is earmarked for for learning loss. And so what I'm wanting to get from this group is, how would you like to see this, like what are our priorities for spending the money? But some of the things from a district level that with the extra money that comes in, it's always a blessing and a curse. Because some of the requirements say you can only spend it this way. And then there's tons of paperwork that we have to do to send it in to make sure we're spending it that way. But they always ask, go to your stakeholders and ask what they want to do. But if you guys are asking us to do something that's not in any of these things, we can't do it anyway. And so even if I say, well, the stakeholders said, we're having a mega back to school party with this money. Like, I can't go in there by reports and say, hey, the stakeholders wanted it, I'm just doing what they're doing. But I don't know, thoughts on this, because if we do something that we start paying from as a district with this money that's only there for a year or two, when that money's gone, what do we do with that? Whether it's a position of a person or it's different things. I want to get something that will last in our, like it works and it helps with learning loss, but it lasts and can go past this point. And so I don't know, thoughts on this. The plan, this is what the plan would look like. It's not filled out, this is the draft. This is going to be due on October 1st. The first process, I'm just going to put in here that through my PAW meetings and through my school board meetings and my administration meetings, this is just one of the check marks that they look at and say, you can spend this money because I know that you talked to other people and it wasn't you just sitting behind your desk going, well, you know, what are we going to do with this money here?
So you said the funds are for
Learning, mostly learning loss. So on this one here, describe how funds will be used to implement the strategies of the CDC guidelines for in-person. You know what we are going to follow? I'm going to put on here, we're following our back to school plan. We're following our into school plan. We don't have to go in here and say, well, I'm going to mandate everybody wear a mask. Sometimes it makes us feel like that, but it's still local control. We're still in Idaho. We still have local control with that. So like we could probably buy hand sanitizing stations. You know, if there's other things that we see for hygiene that need to take place, we probably could look in here and say, oh, we have some hygiene issues on this.
in those new
Water fountains.
The water-
The water bottles.
Well, the
Yes.
problem is our plumbing.
But could you go towards the
But could you, yeah.
But we would have to get like, it would be more expensive, and we just have to get a
plumber
Pay for
that
the plumbing.
pay for that additional stuff, so
Yeah,
it might
some
be worth
of those
it.
water fountains are so disgusting.
We want them to have their own water.
Drink Monster.
It might be worth it.
Most of the teachers are encouraging the kids to bring water bottles, and they're letting them fill them in the classroom, through the faucets. All that water is tested.
Yes, and filtration systems that need to be put on the sinks in the classrooms,
Okay,
like for
so
water bottle.
water fountains, anything else on number 2 is,
All the water in the school is tested. How often?
Is it quarterly?
I don't know if it's monthly or every other month, I
Sometimes
get,
it's-
It
there's
depends
a,
on if they've had a bad test.
Yeah.
They have to do a center.
I know Mr. Sonnenquist is always testing, and he's testing today.
What about ventilation, like, you know, our classrooms are so, especially at the high school, and I
Yeah.
think you did purchase some air conditioners, which helps with the circulation. But what about, like, even some air purifiers or something to increase the ventilation, airflow in some of the classrooms? Like stagnant air is probably not super.
Airflow,
Because I know some of the elementary classrooms too, especially with.
what, for a majority of the rooms, it would have to be some type of portable device.
Yeah.
And so that's what I have to look at, because none of the older parts of the buildings have any central air.
But they have those filters that are standard. I've got one for my parents.
Okay.
and yeah.
I have that written down. Other thoughts?
Definition of learning loss, what are you referring to?
So let's jump to 3. Here's,
Oh, do I?
or no, we can go to it. Because definition of learning loss, they want it to, it's vague, because the money is sent out to the entire United States. We were in school most of the year last year, but we did have an impact where kids were out of school April to May, and they were out of school a little bit even with kids that, if you're sick, stay home. Those kids were having a little bit of an impact with it. And so they want us to make sure that we are using it to help. I'm looking at this to beef up the instruction or beef up intervention. That's kind of how my mind is going on that, because we're different where we've already been beefing this up with our elementary's reading program, trying to really build that foundation. I'm not sure what else we can.
And you've done your blended.
The blended stuff
That kind of
is
falls
focused
line
in
with
on
that.
it.
We kind of talked about trying to find a math program like the 95%, but do something with math.
I just don't know if it's
Available.
out there
Is
yet.
something out there that-
I don't think it's out there yet. Other things that I've thought of with learning loss is we're exploring the possibility of using this. Like with a bond coming up, we've talked about some safety options with the bond. Some of the safety things would be cameras all over, improving our camera systems, but also our intercom system that can get communication throughout. Part of the communication system also is connected to learning. And so there are systems in classrooms where you have a teacher that wears a microphone around their lanyard, and you have speakers inside the classroom. They've found with studies that if kids can hear, I don't know if it's gonna blow your mind, if they can actually hear the instruction, they learn more. Isn't that crazy? And where this bigger one, I don't have a microphone here in front of me, but I have to project a little bit more. My voice is probably a little bit louder to Jimmy than it is to Mindy. And so you think about it in a classroom. So these learning loss funds have to have something that shows that there's research behind it that can improve instruction. That's something that we are considering to look at and say, okay, what would it look like in our district if we brought those speaker systems into each classroom or into the classrooms that it works with? That's one idea that you can say, okay, that's learning loss. Other things that we've thought about with learning loss is, do we have tutoring available on the second week of potato harvest? We run buses on that. Do we have some more before and after school tutoring, where if I'm a teacher and want to have a couple kids stay after school, we can use money like this to compensate those teachers for
Kind of
things
like
like
what
that.
you do with Mrs. Bell.
Yes, but with
others.
everybody. So those are some thoughts that I've had, but this is why I want to ask other people, what do you think?
What I think you're just skimming through right there, it's all focused on, I'll say, the lower learners. But when you have kids that are, you know, in
Yeah.
middle classes and upper learners, and they missed out on education too. And to me, they're getting short shafted, everything is focused on the micro students and
Yeah.
things like that.
And I don't
I want
disagree.
to be sure that they're cared for too.
And I don't disagree. We will continue to focus on them, but as this comes through the Title I type round, that's what that whole group is for. But I see what you're saying, and I think we continue to try to stay true to our mission statement of opportunities for all the kids. That's forever relevant. So,
So on the lines of what you said, so what about, like during summer notice, for the elementary specifically, to have either any of the aides or teachers that would like to come in and maybe get paid a little bit extra, have not regular school, but just have some type of either STEM,
like
program.
an academic camp or something.
Yeah, something like that for the elementary kids,
Teach them
so that they
building,
can
learning.
keep going and not have that gap.
That is so hard to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so we would need buses. Would we go K through 12?
What's that?
Would you go K through
Well,
12?
you've got some kids that definitely, that don't work, that maybe that would be,
It would be really nice, especially for the lower grades.
Yeah,
and
specifically
they
K through
take
6
a lot.
yeah, you have some kids.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to get something all set up and then the older kids not show up and utilize it, you know? I don't know.
Which brings us to the point of, do I have teachers that are wanting to? There might be some. I think we could
Some of the paras might be
wanting to do
wanting
it.
to get that extra money and work through Sped Harvest.
If you have subs, also we have programs to just send activities, there's some subs that may.
Yeah.
I don't want to have plans during summer, so.
She's not volunteering, is what she's saying.
I was
I
gonna
had
say
Andy
that.
down
I almost read the
crossed
list.
off. Dang it.
The other two.
So those are the things that, because
Well, and it wouldn't have to be like every day,
I'm thinking like
activities every day, but like a couple times a week or something.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
And have libraries
A
involved.
lot of books, do story times, do.
Yeah. And even if it was just for a couple hours a day,
Yeah.
like that, it could be like 9 to 12.
The little day camps,
How cool would that be?
Yeah, like have 12, have me lunch, come home.
Day camps. Okay.
because like I took a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old to little day camps this summer for 4-H. And they loved them. They were about 2 hours long and they learned something each time. They learned about my plate, the nutrition type stuff. They
Yeah.
learned it in a fun.
Oh, yeah, you
Wait,
guys know the
what?
4-H people.
Then they also learned how to tie things. They would just put paint on a page and learn how to make art with a straw.
Did you say eat smart? Sorry, did you say eat smart?
My plate, eat smart, something.
For 4-H.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
4-H, yeah.
my plate is the new.
Pyramid.
The new pyramid, it's what you
Triangle.
put on your plate.
Pyramid sounds like a pyramid scheme. I should say triangle, the food
Well,
triangle.
back in my day, it was called food pyramid. Now it's called my plate. But I mean, it's fun for them. I didn't even think it would be something fun for them, but they talked about it for a long time afterwards. And so even something as simple as that, if it's not technically like actual, what would be considered like an in-class learning, but something that teaches them something without it. Without them.
Life
Yeah.
skills, yeah.
And even life skills, because at home, they're gonna need these skills. Some of them go home and need to fix dinner for their siblings or whatever, you know?
I wouldn't mean to overpromote that, but we ran that in summer school because it's lovely.
Yeah.
Nutrition.
Well, and my kids now, they'll be like, Mom, can we just have a fridge dinner? And I'm like, what?
A
And they're like,
fridge dinner?
yeah, so 2 to 3 times a week, I will cook a big meal a few times a week. They get fridge dinner, like probably 3 times a week. They get in my fridge, whatever leftovers are in there. They can combine leftovers to make whatever meal, and they pull whatever they liked out of that week's meals and eat those things. It's fruits, it's veggies, it's meats, whatever, but they like to make their own food, combination of food, and they do it. So, fridge meals.
You're on the sub list, aren't you, for this academic camp? I know I've already crossed Annie off, but.
You don't wanna know.
I mean, if you're gonna teach a dance class up there.
But they, they like it because they get to choose their meals, and I'm not forcing them to eat.
These two sections here are the two most, like the safety precautions and the learning loss. This has been a good place to start. We'll move forward here. If there's others that you come up with or think about. The rest of the plan, really just the paperwork on how the interventions will work and helping the kids, how we're monitoring their progress academically. So those are things that I'll throw into that plan. Perfect. Okay.
With some of the learning love and logic diagnosis courses that cost
Yeah.
money, like that might be something to use that funds for to help.
Oh, helping parents learn how to help their students.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love those costs, I took them very big over those events.
Well, we tried and then COVID hit.
I know, well, and that's, exactly.
Yep. Okay, let's go to the next one. Input for high school graduation requirements. We've talked about this, and again, this is one of the things that, as I've talked with Jimmy, you're shaking your head because we want feedback. We want to make sure we have a balance with the things that we have going forward. When our schedule switched from 5 periods to 6 periods, caught us off guard as a new superintendent going, okay, wait a minute, this is changing everything here. And it was going, okay, how are we going to look at graduation to still have a balance between what's expected from kids, to still follow with our mission statement, small school, big opportunities, endless possibilities. As we look at graduation requirements, typically we want to have, at least traditionally how it's been done, is 85% of the courses offered should be completed and passed by the kids. Now, most kids are probably going to do more than that, but that's just where they set the standard at. So if we have 6 periods a day for 3 trimesters, that's 18 class options per year. 4 years, you look at, that's how many credits that are available. And then you look at the different options that kids have. That's kind of where we start with what should be required for them.
Are we stuck like this if we really want to do the 6 periods?
Yes. The 6 periods, I don't see us going away from the 6 periods because it allows us as a smaller school, unless I have enough teachers to have my own separate middle or junior high school,
Yeah.
which we don't.
But I know that was the whole, really, one of the main reasons to go into the 6th period. But then, like, I go to register justice and we still don't have the schedule for 2nd and 3rd try, so, and I know it's a work in progress, but I'm wondering if that was the answer.
If the 5 periods is the answer.
Or if the 6, going to 6, if that really rectified
So
the situation.
what would happen for the junior high kids then is they would have 1 elective per trimester. That's what it was when I was in school. We had a 5-period junior high, and I had 1 elective. And if that's what we want to do, we could do that. I just think that we'd also then have parents going, all we're doing is math, English, science, and reading, and I get to do PE 1 trimester, and then I get to do this here opens up the options a little bit more.
For them, but then it gives us, our high school, all these credits, and we don't offer.
We offer more.
classes.
We offer more than other 2A schools. And it's not always what our teachers can offer, but we have the IDLA offerings.
Right.
We have the dual credit offerings, and we have the CTE offerings that none other 2A schools don't have.
And I understand that. I just know that even with the 5, by the time my kids got to be juniors, they had taken the electives they wanted to take. And I'm just looking, I've got one coming in next year, and I'm like, it's going to be a struggle.
And so
It is just going to be a struggle.
I don't know what else to do with that, because you're right.
I mean,
I
I
can't- I
think
can't-
the ending, I wonder what we are doing, the total end game for the kids. We've increased English, we've increased
We're talking about that.
math,
We're gonna talk
but
about
we did increase math,
We did,
for sure.
we did.
And so, you know, we have these kids, and in 8th grade, we have our learning plan. And you've got kids that are thinking technical. And the reality of it is, they do not need all of the math classes that we're requiring. Plus, we're not offering the variety to make it worth, I don't know, it's just.
That's why we're having this conversation right now. So let me take the elective piece before, and I might differ on an opinion with that. We do have things that kids could take, but I'm not gonna promise that it's what kids are gonna want to take. And that's something that I can't fix, because we could come in and say, well, what is it that you want to take to have fun in an elective class? I don't know. It's gonna be different for each kid, and
Well, don't you think that electives though are to make them successful in their, as a whole? And have a successful experience and do things that prepares them
right? And sometimes
for,
we don't know if we like something until we try it. And so that's something, yeah, maybe your kid doesn't want to take a guitar class. How do they know unless they take it? Maybe they don't want to be in choir. I didn't want to be in choir in high school, and I took a class, and I like to sing now. I didn't until I took that class. And so the elective part, I don't know, that's something that, yes, if somebody's taking those classes, by the time they're a senior halfway through, they might only have one class that they need to take. There'll be other kids, if they're taking release time or other parts of that they will go all the way through. I don't know how to make a perfect plan for every single kid. And we might have to look at, okay, my senior year, maybe you do have some release time with CTE ag experience or something like that.
so we are bringing that back?
I think we should.
Well, yeah, if you're doing this, then
Exactly.
you have to. That has to be
Doesn't
there.
that fall along the line of big opportunities and its
Yes.
possibilities? Because then it gives a choice back to the student. They're still enrolled in our school, and like, if we're thinking about it, we're still getting the funding for them,
Right.
whether they're here or out there. Do we want kids coming in and taking 5 PE classes and 1 English class? No, we
Well,
don't.
and that's when you sit down, I've got a student that he's taking all the dual credit, and he's like, Mom, these classes are not going to do anything for me. I mean, you have kids that want to see utility in what they're taking. They don't want
Right.
them to be a waste of time.
Fillers, time fillers.
Yeah, and I get that. I had the same problem when I was a senior, but this it's going to make it a lot worse when they get to be their junior and senior. I've helped with schedules a long time. It's going to really make it difficult. You're going to have more kids wanting to graduate early because there's just,
Is that wrong?
it depends on what they're graduating early for.
But
You know,
again,
if they have I'm afraid, so your go-on rate, I think could hurt your go-on rate because you lose kids too.
but even if we had them here all the way through, does that guarantee that they go on?
No, it doesn't.
There's no
It doesn't.
guarantee, and so I don't know if there's a perfect solution. We either have to be completely saying, no more choice, and this is what you're doing. But if we open it up to say, okay, we have a lot of different options to go off of, there will be some kids that will graduate early. And some kids are like, I'm sick of school, I don't want to play on the baseball team, I don't want to run track, why am I even here? If that's where they're at, do we want them here?
Well,
Probably not.
no, but it's just like the kids that if the only classes that are available are things that they're really not interested in,
And that's
hard for your teachers, it's hard for the kids that want to.
And that's gonna be a mindset from each individual family. Because we can flip it on the other side and say, one way to make sure kids don't graduate early is to require math their senior year.
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
And so when you're looking at state law, can you share that screen?
Yep, go ahead,
Turn that
share.
off. When you're looking at state, there it goes. So this is what Jimmy's talking about, where in years past, previous years in 2019, 18, if you're going back this other way, English was offered 2 times per year in a trimester system for 8 credits total in your high school. So what would happen is your freshman year, there are 3 trimesters, you take English 2 of those, and those count as 2 credits. All the way up to 8 for each year. The state of Idaho says that you need to have 8 credits to graduate in English, but that code is written on a trimester system, not excuse me, semester. You know what I meant? You know what I mean? It's written on a semester, not a trimester. So at West Jefferson, you could look at this and say, by doing that, you're actually only teaching 2 out of the 3. Are you really like?
You losing over a year.
Yes, you're losing over a year and a third over the course of 4 years for that type of instruction. Now, if you're looking at standards, can you put all the standards in there? You could make the argument to say, yeah, we're teaching everything. We're just teaching it more condensed, quicker. They're getting the same. And it's going to depend on the learner, how that's affected or not. Math, the state of Idaho has 6 credits that are required. So if you take that same format, and this is what we were doing 3 or 4 years ago, prior to me being superintendent, we would teach math 2 trimesters with 1 trimester off. So really you have 2 freshman, sophomore, junior, you could be done with math, but you only really took it for the equivalent of a year and a half compared to the semester system on that. So one of the changes that was made even prior to me coming here is they said, well, let's increase what happened first? Did they increase the number, like to say you have to take it every single year in high school? I think they did first. That you had to take it to 8 credits is what I thought they did. That's what it was, yep.
Yes.
To 8 credits, that's why the seniors last year had 8 credits. They said, you have to take math every single year, which you can follow that logic saying, okay.
As long as you are offering applicable math.
Right. And then the other thing is that you have to take it all 4 years, and you have to have 8 credits in math to graduate from West Jefferson. That was above and beyond what the state of Idaho requires.
Because I think the state required you had to have it your senior year. So
With the
most of the
exception-
kids, a lot of the kids here skipped their junior year.
Mhm.
They didn't have math.
They took it
They
their
did all the-
senior, with the exception of if you have completed Algebra 2. So if I was a freshman and I took Algebra 1, and I took Geometry, and I took Algebra 2, you met the requirements and didn't have to take it as a senior. And so there's different questions going, okay, so what about ACT? We're not preparing kids. Kids aren't doing this. So looking at it from the choice of like, does everybody have to go down math? Do we have to just push math down every single student? But on the flip side, we have a wonderful math teacher, well, probably one of the best in the area. There's a lot of kids that are missing this free opportunity to take math from a great teacher if they choose not to. So on one side, you're going, well, let's make it required that they have to take it. So you make it required, it creates another problem by going, well, you're making me take it.
Well,
So it's like so you look at it from this situation, it becomes, well, where are we going with this? What do you want to do?
I think it depends on, that's why I would like to see us get back to really coming up with the pathway and guiding them.
And that's a hard one
For
too.
your technical, there's things we can offer that would really benefit
Yeah.
students that want to go technical. Calculus, probably not it.
Yeah.
So,
And those are things that as I've talked with Mrs. Bell, We visited with her yesterday as administration. She has some ideas to strengthen some of that technical stuff, and not this year, but as we look at some different things with some of the senior level math for the technical side. So we're thinking on those things. Her viewpoint would be to say, let's try to push as much math as possible. Like let's require 10 or 11 credits throughout that for math. But that is hard because now we're putting almost the whole student body through that math course.
Right.
And everything else. And by doing that, it restricts the choice on other things. So one thing that, going back to the history of where we went from 2 trimesters for 3 years to making it all 4 years, when we jumped to the 6-period day, all of a sudden that was like, okay, now we have 3 credits the first year. Or excuse me, let me backtrack. I lost you on that one. With the moving to 8 credits required, then we went to, we're going to require math all year long and teach it all year long instead of just 2 out of the 3 trimesters. By doing that, it increased the math amount. It's actually better practice to teach it all year round because they get the full year. It's equivalent to it.
You don't do it, you forget.
Yeah, you don't do what you forget. But by having it that way, we also kept the credits to say you also have to do it your senior year, at least 2. So that turned into 3, 6, 9, 11 math credits required. And that doesn't allow any kids that fail a safety net to redo it. And that was a big issue. And that's where this last spring, as I was meeting with our school board, with Mr. Guimar, previous administration, I'm saying, we've got to relook at this. And there was different discussions going on. Well, we have to keep it high to keep everybody here. But I'm like, well, let's try to get back to what the state requires and how it looks in our district. So some of the thoughts that we had yesterday concerning math. This year for 2022, 9 credits are required for math to graduate. That actually is right spot on with what the state of Idaho has for their requirement. If you look at it where 6 credits in a semester is equivalent to 9 credits in a trimester, if you're following on that one. And one of the proposals where I'm leaning, but again, it's not my decision, the school board is going to make the ultimate decision, but feedback from parents is helpful. If we come in and say, let's keep this 9 credits and just stay 9 all the way through, that gets back to the choice that students have. You might have some students who are done with math by the time they're sophomores, maybe juniors. If they've completed it, then it's going to be their choice on what they take as a senior.
Well, don't you think that gives parents and the student the choice? Like, we want them, their possibility, so that gives them.
I think so.
I think so too.
And that's where it makes us be more of a, what is it that, because it's going to be a give and take. It's going to be a give and take on this one here. If I see that it says, okay, we can encourage you to say, look, we have a math teacher who's one of the best math teachers in the area. You might want to encourage your son to say, take a math class your senior year. Well, I might not use it ever, but you might, and it's free. Go take it, so that's one of the things where, but if we're having it to 11, if we have 11 credits of math required for everybody, then we create another issue with the kids that are failing. Now we have an issue with getting kids graduated and not having a chance for them to remediate. So where I'm leaning to, at least for a proposal, and this is good feedback, 9 feels better. 9 feels like a balance. It felt like we were moving out of balance. By going to 9, it brings us back into balance with math.
Well, that's equivalent of 3 years.
Yes, and that's exactly what the state requires.
And I think that will help your, elective classes.
Yes.
Because what happens is, if you're requiring these English and math, and yes, I'm not saying they're not
They're
at all.
right.
But I'm saying those technical kids, sometimes they don't have a choice to take that class of what they're actually going to do in their future, because they have to do that math class that's required at that time.
you know, there are concerns that junior, senior year, they might score lower on tests. We don't know what the future of college admissions is gonna be anyway.
Right, they're not like, this year they didn't require an ACT.
And it looks like that's the trend, doesn't it?
Yes.
What you've said.
Yes, I think that, well, because I think they finally, it helped them realize that maybe that's not telling you who the perfect student for your school is.
No.
So I think that,
But so if that's not the focus, there's concern sometimes saying, well, you might have to take a remedial class when you get to college. That's not the worst thing in the world. I don't think that's where we, like, if you're taking a remedial math class, maybe you just have to freshen up. There are gonna be some kids that might choose military, there's some kids that might choose church missions. Guess what, it's gonna be a couple of years before you're doing math. You're probably gonna have to go back and do it anyway, unless they're doing it.
60% of our college kids take remedial courses. That's not good.
It's not, but what can we do about it here? Like, we could come back and take this back to the other side. Let's require 11 credits of math to make sure you're there.
some of it's brain development too, though. I think that,
Are all kids ready?
yeah, some kids aren't ready for calculus in high school, which prepares them, you know what I mean? Or even.
But it's also motivation. When you look
It's
at
different.
the motivation is different on wanting to learn the subject. If you have high school kids wanting to learn, they're probably going to learn it, and they're probably not going to need a remedial class in college. But they're more mature, and they're ready to go to do that. When you get into,
I hate to limit kids' options.
but they're not limited. They still can.
I mean, we have kids graduate from here, they will not have to take any math in college because they've taken.
You know, you talk about taking pre-calc, so do we have classes here that are geared towards those kids that are going into a trade?
That would be the 9 credits. They just have to take the 9.
And that's what he was
Basic
talking
things.
about, they were talking about maybe some in a senior math, more of a technical type math.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
But
what.
we do not have that.
We don't have it right now, but it's, as I talked with Mrs. Bell as of yesterday, the projection is to look for something for
Oh,
the
okay.
next school year.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's really smart.
Mindy, you had a comment.
Okay, so on that calculus and pre-calculus, if you're going into a business field, it's required in college. Calculus, most kids do not get it the first time. I did not. I took a pre-calculus class here before I left, and I went into a business program that required calculus, and the second time it clicked. So having that pre-calculus and or calculus is not an awful thing for kids that want to go into a business setting. Because it's required in college as well, and a lot of times you've got to do it more than once. Calculus is not easy by any means. So I wouldn't take all of that out. Just consider that there are some kids that are gonna want that and some that are gonna want the other as well. And it's hard to balance whatever.
So to be clear, those classes will still be offered.
Right.
We will still have the calculus, we'll still have the pre-calculus, we'll have those upper level ones. It's, who this is really potentially going to impact the most would be your advanced 8th grade students. I'm an 8th grade student, I take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. By state code, those credits count towards graduation. So as an 8th grader, I've already banked those 3 credits. My freshman year, I'll take geometry. My sophomore year, I'll take Algebra 2. By then, I'll have those 9 credits. I could be done with math my sophomore year. That's the worry that the math department has, and I actually can see that worry because they're going to go, you're not going to take any more math because you just don't want to. But what you're saying is exactly right. This is where we're going. Okay, if we have 11 credits, then those kids will have to go into there and be kind of.
That's why you had to take it your senior year.
And that's where we're like, you have to take it. That's the discussion we have. Should we be saying as a district, you have to do this, or should it be parent and student choice? I actually think it should be parent and student choice, personally.
Probably should.
Like, we're here for them. But going back to it, I would hope this is where we want parents to get involved and say, no, take that class, push yourself to that class. Like,
This is where you say it's hard, but it might be someplace you don't wanna go right now. But when you get there, it might be awesome.
and in your situation, this is your first time to see it. You're probably going to see it again as a college student.
Well, and I didn't realize I was gonna be taking calculus in college. But when I got there, I was really, really grateful that I'd already taken it once, because he was like, how did you pass this class the first time? And I said, well, I took calculus in high school. He said most of his students take it twice.
Huh.
So
That's good.
it's,
Why did you not do it for dual credit?
I can't remember. I don't think I understood it well enough to do the dual credit on there. It was like, it might have been one of those where she taught it and we had to take a test.
Well, and so we have some kids take it, not for college credit, so.
Yeah. And so, no, I don't think I really understood it well enough. But that was what he told me in that class, was that most of his students do it once and then they come back and do it the second time.
So for math, kind of what we're leaning on the direction, it sounds like, Jimmy, you would agree with 9 math credits all the way through. All right, I guess people can tell the difference. Andy, you have another thought or different thought on that?
Yeah, I do. So many parents are not gonna make wise choices for their kids because they don't know they're not interested enough. And I hate to see the parents, I hate to see the kids handicapped because the parents just say, oh, you take whatever you want to.
But that's when you have a good counselor and they chat with them and they talk about,
You're a counselor.
like,
Oh,
and they
Yeah,
talk
okay,
about
yeah,
that and
yeah,
they explain, and if they have, you know, their plan, their 4-year plan, and they're kind of, it all plays in, it's just, but I know what you're talking about, but you'd be surprised the kids that we have actually graduated, that have done calculus and stuff, didn't have support from home.
Because you're passionate about the math, and you see that. And I'm not gonna try to get political here, but if I'm passionate about vaccinations, and I say, you all need to get vaccinated, if we're staying really true to giving people the option, you gotta stay true to it this way as well.
Oh, I know.
You see what I'm saying with that? And so that's kind of where my leadership style is, to say, okay, let's have the balance between school choice and the structure. This year we're hitting what we need to with the 9 credits. It goes to choice, but there are going to be some kids that choose not to take math, and guess what? That's going to hurt them. That's going to hurt them when they get.
They're not gonna realize it until down the road.
But by forcing them to take the math creates other issues for those that are taking a different path.
And bottom line, I believe in freedom of choice.
Well, and what's great is we do have this smaller school, and all the teachers are aware, and even though they may not be a math teacher, I've seen teachers say, hey, you're really good at this,
Yeah.
you need to go ahead and go on, you need to get this class that will benefit. I mean, they're so good that way.
So one of the other things as we're having this math discussion with administration, and we're looking at, okay, where's the balance at? The next one came into with the English. So we're looking at, we went from 8 and 20 to 9, 10 to 11 for this year's juniors. The reason why what we were looking at is, right now for freshmen will do 2 sessions of English with one trimester off. And then the junior, or the sophomore, junior, seniors all did 3. And that's where the 11 credits are equaled up to. So I just said, okay, let me just be that devil's advocate to myself on this one here. Math is taught by subject, where you can have an 8th grader in a class with a junior, depending on their levels. English is taught by grade level, no matter what. And so if the goal by the end of high school is for kids with research projects, their senior projects, writing is very, very important. But we're also trying to not have it it be out of balance, we thought, well, what if we stayed at 10 credits for English instead of going to 11? And you just flip-flop that focus. Freshman, sophomore, two times per year. Junior, senior, 3 times per year. That was a thought that we had to say, okay, and I have to visit again with our English department for the seniors to see, do they like it all year long? I know with their dual credit classes, Mrs. Scott said she liked it 3 trimesters because you're not cramming it all in.
She's got her dual credit class though, it's like basically your English 101 and a lit class. So what if they don't want to take that lit class?
The lit and lane class?
Well,
or
no, she has, they're separate, so she has an English, I can't remember. There's
There's a list down in the list of all the classes. No, it was on the agenda, so.
so they actually end up with
What's it?
This is from 9A, but it's,
so you have English 201 and there's another class, there's actually 2.
But they're being taught in the same.
So third
Is-
try is
is this
more
it?
that.
English, regular English and dual credit English? That's what I
Yes.
see control.
So you have your dual credit, but she's teaching 2 English classes in those 3 tries. It's not just,
For the dual credits.
yes, it's not just English 201, it's English 201 and a lit class.
All for college credit.
Yes, but I don't know if it's set up so that, say, they didn't want the lit class. Can they just take the English 201?
I don't know. I'll have to look at that. Mr. Davis, can you write that down as well?
That's what you understand when we're doing credit English.
So we're talking about senior English?
Class.
Yeah,
If they don't want the lit, can they take 201?
Yeah, without lit, is that right? We rephrasing that?
Yes.
That-
So there's 2 different, they get 2 different college credits for those. They're 2 different classes.
So she teaches them all within the same.
I don't know if that's what I'm asking, if it was 201 for the first 2 tries and then,
For the third.
yeah,
C is millennial.
What
I
I,
can't remember what it's called.
so moving back to having the 3 options, junior and senior year, what are your thoughts if English 10 was only 10A and 10B? If we remove that one there, it does allow us to, as a sophomore, you'd have more options for other courses. What are your thoughts on this one? I could go either way. By having that there, it keeps it math at 9 credits total, and then we keep English at 10 credits, which does also allow a safety net for some of the kids as well. What are some potential pros and cons and perspective issues with that?
Well, I can see a con being the fact that you've shortened their classes, so it's not just the 2 English, the 2 tries of English, they're shorter classes than they were 2 years ago. See what I'm saying? Because you've shortened the class time by doing 6 periods a day instead of 5. And
you
so,
almost need the 3.
what are you, that's why I thought you wanted that. I didn't know.
And I'm okay with staying with
Well, what
yes.
are you can't fit it all in, so what are you leaving out? So that would be my question, what,
Yeah, we would need to look into that with 10th grade English. If you could look into that. Because if part of it really just started with the question of, does 11 seem too high? That's kind of where we're at. So somewhere Because we could go ninth grade all year long too, and then you'd be up to 12, but that just feels,
There's no safety.
and I'm just trying to find a
Yeah,
balance.
it's really tricky when
Just-
you've got those kids that, because they still have to, so they failed one, they still have to do the English
Yes.
10. And we have to do a
Yes.
9 and trying to fit it in, and it's
That's,
really
that,
hard, and you have it more than you would like. That happens.
When you fail, what you go to summer school?
they can do credit recovery options. Whether you call summer school like IDLA, they can take those courses and
Mhm.
recoup the credit that way.
So why do we have to worry about that? The safety net. I think
Well,
that's-
because some kids do not do well on well, especially if they had a hard time in the classroom,
Yeah.
to go and do
Online.
an online
Extend
to
it themselves.
keep the credit.
So
We're trying to make them be successful. I think that's, we don't want to set them up to fail in credit recovery too.
Well, that's true.
So I
we
guess
have
that's-
summer school here.
They have credit recovery options with IDLA. There's not a summer school with that, so. Well, other thoughts on English besides that? Pros and cons?
I would love English, that's the dream. But I do see the pros of staying at 10 versus going to 1. I know there's positive and negative both, but to try to refit sophomore, junior, freshman, you have to redo it.
You know, and we could, as we present this to the board, I want to make sure that our math is right where it's balanced. I'm feeling good with the discussions that I'm here, just with the other things that's resonating, that that's where majority of people are wanting to lean. The English was one that really just started exploring just barely, and so I'll get you this just a second, Mindy. The other part is if the school board, when they look at this on the school board meeting, they do accept the change to 10 or 9. The schedule can be adapted with those sophomores already for second and third trimester. We've already looked into it to show that it would work for this year if that's what happened. Mindy.
Okay, so English is taught on grade level, and where math, those kids can have those credits way early.
Yeah.
They can't do that with English though. Why?
Math is more fun. I mean, you take the counts.
Right.
That's
I understand that math is like, kind of either get it or you don't. The English is
one of those things where it's also where kids get older, they learn to write and express differently. There's different types of writing that with the research papers, the requirements kind of increase over time. And that's why they usually keep them in the same. I'm sure you could probably.
They could with
I have a better year with
with
math.
IDLA,
Yeah.
you could over the summer take your freshman
Yeah.
class. Ideally, and it would be a freshman credit, and it's paid for through advanced opportunities, and so there are options if they wanted
Well,
to
I
move
was
ahead. There's options
Yeah.
for kids to move ahead in English.
looking at it as kids are on different levels in all subjects, not just certain ones. Does that make sense?
It shows up in junior and senior because you have honors English as a junior and dual credit as, so that kind of
That's where.
breaks.
Okay.
So other things, I know in past PAW meetings, the fine arts question came up. Initially, we did have 3 on 2022, but we did adjust that with our school board, which was a good suggestion because it just caught those kids that were right in the middle of the change into a harder position. By 23, the fine arts 3 credits does seem reasonable. So if the school board does choose to go with 10 for English, 9 for math, that leaves us at 56, and that would just continue all the way across. Is that how everybody else is reading that? Is there anything else with the current numbers or anything?
U.S. history.
Yes,
All the U.S. history.
that's what's required by state.
But maybe we need to do better because you know how Latin American kids are in knowledge in this country.
We had an extra,
There's
there was
two
an extra.
history and two government for US, which I think is pretty.
I taught,
It's
I
2
taught
years
some
of
little kids, and I was
years
astounded when they did not know about our country.
Facebook
Did not know that.
If you look at Facebook, it's definitely something that,
We had another history, we used to have another history.
There's another one in the electives, isn't there? I think there's another one in the electives.
Well, yeah, because there used to be, remember, what was the other history that we had?
Add into the class list again, they have the electives listed underneath the core classes.
Constitutional law?
No, I know that my older boys had to have more history to graduate than Dylan.
Oh, it says it has to have 5 credits, so research officer. Social studies has to have 5 to graduate, not 4.
Yeah, we used to require.
There's world history, science, government, economics.
So here's the
There you go.
introduction to world civilizations and cultures.
Well, but constitutional law is great history.
is that where you want to be stopped?
Yeah, that was the one that was, I knew that I had seen in there somewhere.
You know, that might be something that we could,
I mean, that, to me, that is critical.
I don't know,
We used to require
another history class,
another history class.
So it's, so.
and that could be something
And it went away, and one of the reasons being
like,
is because, so
Go back
the
up.
state requires 5. And when we would have kids transfer in, say junior, senior year, and we were requiring an extra history class, they couldn't fit it in.
because we were
it was,
offering
all
something.
of our kids took it like their freshman year, this extra class, and we couldn't fit it in. It's like that Langley Lit class that we had that went away. It was the same thing. We have kids transfer in, and it was a required class, and they couldn't. It was really hard. So that was one of the reasons. I can't remember what the.
But that says right there that they only get 2 trimesters of US history, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That
And
is,
then 2 trimesters of US government.
And
So they have 4 total.
yeah,
But it used to be more. Plus they had more class.
That, Jimmy, that makes sense though, that if they had something that was just West Jefferson specific
It was making it really hard.
for kids,
No.
you're doing that for 1 or 2 kids to transfer.
it's not 1 or 2, it's,
Yeah, we.
In high school.
you'll be surprised at how many people, even in our small town, are in and out of the school system between. And it puts them off on, different,
But where you need to go is the state, and you need to tell them you need to up it, and it makes it easier for.
because that's really what it would be.
But we don't have to do the minimum requirements. I mean, the
No.
state is not prohibited us from doing more.
No.
Okay,
That's true.
this has been good. The next one, student handbook, I don't know, this is really good information, there's a lot to go over. This is a draft, it would be nice, and I did find some typos and stuff in here, so we're not, just to say, okay, just forewarning you on this. Some of the main things that, we've already talked about the attendance policy that we're wanting. And again, this was just a draft. It's not going to start off with attendance policy. We'll have that. But the attendance policy, we have that trying to balance between where are we at with ADA and attendance and what they offer. ADA stands for average daily attendance,
Okay.
and that's where they have the funding formula.
Right.
So if kids aren't here, then our money that we get goes
All I
down,
could think of was the American Disabilities Act.
Right.
which is the same acronym.
Okay, thank you.
So here's what the proposed procedures for the attendance for the high school. It actually, we go down to junior high. We're trying to do as much as we can with elementary, but this is more for secondary because of the credits that are attached to the kids in class. No more than 5 total absences, and it sounds like that's what it used to be, right? And then if somehow we got these bonus days,
Well, it was 6.
where's 6 at? It was 6?
It was 6.
I think that was also based off of the
I think we
trimester.
changed that now.
What do you think though? Is in my mind I'm going, I don't let my teachers miss more than 1 day a month. Why are we giving the kids 5 days in 50? You know, to do that, but state law says 90% attendance. Is 5 too few? Do we need to put it to 6? What are your thoughts?
No. We need to, some kids critically ill,
Then
special exceptions.
we can make special exceptions
Yeah.
with that.
Well, when you figure how much they miss with sports, okay, throw in there, my senior has 3 senior days this year, 3 college days that we can go look at colleges, and he's like, oh, I can do that. I'm like, not with your dual credit, you can't miss dual credit classes, you're going to have to be there, I don't know. But put that in there, that's 8. You know, there might ought to be.
Or should we have something in there that those senior days count as one of those?
As an absence,
No, just towards the 5.
oh, towards the 5 out of their 3?
No, just because right now they have 3 senior days. You have 8 days.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Well, but the chances they'll use all those 3 in one trimester. I don't think we've ever had anybody pull that.
It's 3 total for the year.
I remember
Yeah.
using one when I was a
They said
senior.
it gets 6.
Yeah,
And I'll be
usually they
honest,
get so busy and,
I used one on when I was a senior, but was it really that helpful for me to make my decision, or was it a day to get out of school?
Did get out of school 500%.
well, for my child, it is, we have a couple different campuses that we want to go look at.
Right.
And you have to go when they're in session, so you can see, you know, I thought about doing it over the summer, that's not really very helpful.
No.
So, there are people that, and that's why we have them, but we've not had, I've not seen them
Used efficiently.
to,
We do have our teacher professional days on Fridays though, where the students aren't here, that they could go do their visits.
That's a really good point.
And on their blended learning days, why, if they have their assignment done early, why couldn't they go look at college that Friday?
Oh, that's excellent.
We're back to 4-day week school almost, so they have those Fridays.
right?
I think that's.
But you do need to know that those 3 are out there, and the kids know they have, their junior and senior year. Their junior
3
year, I
each?
think they can use, 3 total, and their junior and senior year, or their junior year, I think they can use 1. Is it 1 or,
So
it's,
I wonder if we make a change on that and say you get to use them on Fridays. Unless you can really come in and show me an agenda that you have to meet with a professor on a different day.
well, we've had like our athletes that go to look. They have tryouts, we had somebody that
Yeah.
had to,
Well, I think those would be the exception to them. I wonder, I didn't see anything on here on college days.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. 'cause
That needs to be added in here.
But that could also be like someone that's sick. If there's an exception to the rule, why, you wouldn't make the rule
No.
for the 3 that are going to do it.
No,
And that'd be an exception for like.
So I
have
think we
surgery,
say-
you'll get that
I
very-
think we say in there, the college and career days are to be used on a Friday when they're not in session. That gives you the chance to do that.
And if you can't do it then, and they come to you, you can
Yep.
petition also, just like you can with other.
If there's a tryout or something where you have an agenda where you're gonna meet, we'll
Well,
allow you to
those-
go.
you know, those college days, they had to go and get the principal to sign. It wasn't, they just couldn't, didn't show.
Right.
They're,
But if
There
you're
were
taking a Monday,
stipulations
Tuesday,
to it.
Wednesday, or Thursday off, you're missing the school. I like this. This is really good. Okay, awesome. So with the attendance, here's where the procedures, this is what was previously written, we just kept some of the same language. But we want to know where the student's at. They need to let the school know, parents need to let the school know, either through a note, calling them. But we want to call them verified absences instead of excused
I love
absences.
that. It's a great change.
And that way the focus can stay on you still have the 5 days. And if I'm sick for up to 5, it's not like I have 5 extra bonus ones to burn. And that's the mentality we have to get away from and say, yeah, my parent called in and they excused me, so that absence doesn't count. So that's something that we're looking at. The school-sponsored absences, do we have we don't talk about tardies yet.
So right there, it says, will be considered an excuse absent. Will you change that verbiage to a verified absence?
Yeah, we probably missed them a couple on them.
Because it's the same.
Which part is that in?
The first line under school-sponsored absences.
Give me the
Absences for school-sponsored programs which classes will be missed is considered to be in. Just some, because it would be excused, it would still.
I think we maybe could say will not be counted as an absence. Absences for school-sponsored programs in which classes will miss will not be counted as an absence because it's school-sponsored. That clarifies. I think we get that excused.
Yeah, out of it.
We either count it as it or we don't.
So you would also delete the some such absences are not counted towards absent days, which were.
Yeah, because that's just takes that out. Leaving the building, with our schedule last year, it was a little bit harder because of the different changes. We do have kids that do try to leave campus during nutrition break. They can't leave during nutrition break, or at least by the procedures they're not supposed to. And also they were skipping out during the mentoring period as well. So those are things that are going to be a focus, just as a reminder. And it's a safety issue for us. When kids are here, if they need to leave, if you really want your child to go off campus, check them out at the office with a phone call coming down there. Here's one that we want to experiment with. End of the trimester for good attendance, or I'm not sure what way we can phrase that differently, but the classes are going to have a final given usually before the last day of the semester. Sometimes it is on the last day, but it just depends. There have been other districts that have experimented with this, where they allow students who have an A or a B and have fewer than a predetermined number of absences to not have to take the attendance final on the last day. And that is their bonus day to say, congratulations, you were awesome this semester or trimester.
An attendance fine.
Yes.
Just
So-
mean
So
final
this is
attendance
what they
class.
do, and they do count the kids as there on that day.
But I don't, the attendance fine phrase this.
But then they only have to be there for. they don't
So
have to do that
then the
class.
students who have missed all the days, they come in and they have an extra assignment as an attendance final because their attendance wasn't. I don't know if we'll get
So
caught
it's
up on
not
this.
a final for the semester.
No,
Okay.
the other kids take a final for the semester already, but there's one
So
more.
they get to leave campus, because you're gonna have kids that are off for that last day, they're just gonna leave.
If not, it's gotta be for all the classes.
But what if they only have to be there for one class, like third hour, they get to just come and go, all the other hours, and then
They
third hour?
they get to take, I don't know, explain it how, does Bonneville do that? I know
Yes.
Madison did it similarly to this as well. So it's not,
Madison's is a little different though, right?
how do you
Like,
understand Madison's?
So what I understood it is that they still were in, it wasn't, I don't even think they called it a final, did they? That they had to check in basically that hour, then they did leave, like they went to the next class and they just have to check in all those classes.
My understanding is that they were there for the
For the
entire
whole
day.
time? Well, wasn't it just seniors, could all the classes do that, all the high school?
My understanding, all the
It was something funky.
and I can look into it a bit more.
So Bonneville does some, Rigby, I know did it for a while, I think they still do it. So what they do is, it's that requirement in all the classes. And then they have, I think the absences they set at 2 or fewer. And they said they had kids that were like, no, I don't wanna go home, they're sick, and they want, I don't wanna go home because I don't wanna miss my day, I don't wanna miss that attendance final.
That's
Yeah.
terrible for COVID.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
that's why we're bringing this
That's why,
up.
that's what we gotta figure around. Because even though, just because it's worked somewhere else, doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna work here.
Or now, so that's where,
Like, is
Is
this
this-
the time to try that?
Maybe not.
Because I guarantee Zane Collister would have stayed if he had an IV in his arm when I was in school, just to make sure he was there for all the, like, is this really
Right.
the climate and the time to do that?
That's a good question, it's a fair question.
part of the mindset, and maybe it's not the right time, especially with COVID, So just go in there and take it out for now, but look into it. Everything that we have in here for attendance feels punitive. Do this, or this is your punishment. And if we do have like a Saturday school option in here to help with that as a safety net, but also when you come in for Saturday school, it feels like a punishment because that's your time that you come in. We were hoping to say, if it's not, then the target turns from I've got 5 days to burn to I've got 2. But by doing that, kids will show up sick by doing this. And so I don't know if it's the right thing either.
Yeah, and it may not be. I guess the thought process behind it is, you guys follow PBIS and all other behavior.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is that rather than policing, right, which, you know, and to some extent can work, to some extent you have to do a little bit of, you're flipping that a little bit and making it more, hey, we want you to feel like you want to be school, you know.
I can see how it could be a beneficial thing, as they monitoring it, policing it, reminds me a lot of mentoring, when they check in and they're like, that's kind of what, and that did not, as a son, that was the worst part of the day.
Yeah, what I mean by policing is rather than having incentivized for attendance rule, now you're needing to, let's just look only at Saturday school, let's look at only, you know, how are we implementing something that might feel more like a punishment rather than.
It is a fair question, Julie.
Yeah,
So what
it's a
about,
great question, actually.
instead of looking at absences, looking at their tardies? So if they're an A or B and they have no tardies, then they're rewarded.
We have, I don't know if you want to step in here, I can share a little bit. So with the tardies, you know, we've played a little bit with, and this is a red day outside, so feel free to go, you know, you want.
A lot of places have good ideas, like
Yes,
that's.
it does not mean that it's gonna work
Yeah.
in our, you know, where we're at, what our school concern. But one thing that they've done, with tardies, you know, it's partly through this trimester, you know, the sale, is it having tardies come down, you know, especially, maybe, you know, barbecue, that kind of thing.
Safe
Something
River,
like that.
when I went to school, in high school.
No,
Safe River first
no
year,
tardies,
we
you
did
can
that.
leave lunch for 5 minutes early.
It was the
Some-
best.
it's- yeah,
Those
yeah,
things
yeah.
really.
I loved
You love that?
I love that one. And that Safe River did a lot of, the tardies were huge there, but they also went to different buildings, kind of, it was bigger campuses for sure. But, so it took you a minute, so you like wander.
Do we have a
But-
little water in between classes this year?
So here's where the balance is,
So fix that.
this is where I don't want kids, I'm gonna look at this one. The 2 places where I really want us to buckle down on tardies, first hour and 5th hour.
And they come
After lunch.
Yep. Those are the ones, once they're here on campus, teachers, we can encourage kids to come, but part of the reason why we have the 3 minutes between is to try to not have our days so long and meet all the requirements. If kids are respectfully going to that spot and they're not causing a problem, that's also something that in a school district, or excuse me, in a business setting, we have to trust that people are being respectful, responsible. We have to give them a little bit of a chance. I think we focus really on first hour and 5th hour on that, because if not, then it's becoming so tedious of how many is this, how many is that? Like I have, like
51 hours of detention.
exactly, and we don't have time for that.
happened.
But first hour, 5th hour is gonna be the high priority. And then the kids that are really dragging their feet in between, they're gonna show up and we'll have to visit with them individually on that.
Well, admin and teachers in the hall help. push them
Exactly.
along to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
next
so
step.
that's on the agenda on the very first
Visual,
meeting.
visual.
I love
Be in
that.
the hall. And they're incentivized too. So
Yes.
Not, they have to be, but I mean, they really do.
So that's a good question about that, because you're absolutely right. We can't force the kids to do something that's physically impossible to do on some, with some of the camp, because we can't have a campus where we have kids over at the junior high, at the high school. There's gonna be a little bit, but if we were 4 to 5 minutes between classes, it extends the day by 20 minutes, even though it doesn't seem like it does, but it really does. And if we had a 10-minute break between class, we're still gonna have kids tardy, because they're gonna wait until the 10th minute, you know, before they start moving.
Till the
So-
bell rings and then they jump into class.
Something I did was, my kids that would be late for lunch, you know, I would be the quiz first
Yeah, some bell work,
Well,
get that going.
and it would be so easy, the kids were there so fast that the kids that were late.
There's an idea, I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are on this one. If you have a bell to start the day and a bell to on the main things, but you don't have a bell between classes. I don't know, this was presented to me,
Why?
because the kids are gonna wait for the bell. If the teachers just have their clock in a room, the teachers know when to start. Because what happens is we're training the kids to wait for the bell before they move.
I don't know.
And so if they start the day with a bell, and then you dismiss for lunch with a bell, you start the fifth period with a bell coming back, and the day with a bell. Teachers will have to monitor whether they have a running clock or something, or a timer in their room.
I can tell you a couple that will not, like, you know, the ones that will keep their kids longer because there was no bell, and they weren't prepared. Like, there are certain ones that will not be watching, they'll be in the middle of something.
I know,
And they'll keep their kids up.
I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to pull out names, and please don't say names.
What? I wasn't doing
Yeah, do not say names. But wouldn't it be better to have a, I don't know, because what we do is we've trained kids to hang out in the hall until you hear the bell.
Is that terrible? Like, honestly, like, to have a breather for a second before the next class, I'd be better if I could chat with someone before I do something.
So
You know what I mean? Like, is that terrible?
So did you say they're not gonna have a bell at the end of each class period?
You were talking when I was saying it. I said it was just an
I
idea.
know.
It was just an idea. This is how rumors get started on these
Well, the
things.
reason I was is because I wanted to say something, but I
She was
didn't
needing
get a
that
chance
3
to say it
minutes
out
to
loud,
talk.
so I had to say it to Annie.
So,
Well, if you could
Well-
have it at the end of the class period, but not the beginning of the class period, then they know when to end, but they have to get to the next class as soon as possible.
well, just within a reasonable time, just get in and go. Know that your teacher gonna do it.
And the teacher, rather than watching the time, she may be talking with the student.
Yeah.
Maybe that couple minutes there, just have some one-on-one time.
And so then the students will know also, when the teacher's ready to start, you need to be in class when the teacher starts. That's an interesting one too. Well, I'm not saying we're gonna do it, we're just exploring.
I do like, though, that there are some classes that are so well trained that as soon as that bell rings, like Coach Hall for real, like as soon as that bell rings, they're in their seats, they know, they're ready to start immediately. And it's not like that with every class.
Yeah.
If you have subs or other people, and there are a lot of these, there are people that sub a lot, like there are a lot of classes that sub. There are some classes that are that well trained, that's not every class.
And you love to sub those classes.
You do.
You just do that and have it, even though you're sub, you don't have
It's
the
not-
issues.
Shane, can I ask real quick?
Yeah.
The idea behind it is trying to avoid a bigger. Yeah, that's my feeling.
I think with the end of trimester procedures, maybe we hold off for a year on this first one. We do have some new things, got a new face there. We will have the blended days that are coming in.
I love the idea of positive, something like looking, I
I
appreciate
wonder,
that.
I wonder if we take that and say, okay,
Positive stuff.
If they don't show up in time at their job, then it's fine.
yeah,
Well, and that's a big complaint of, employers is right now we're producing a workforce that,
yeah.
Doesn't work.
yeah.
And I worry about that as
They don't-
superintendent.
Just
I
their
don't want that
soft
to be-
skills, they're missing, they're lacking.
I don't want that to be our product, you know, that's, when you look at it. The graduation requirements will be put in here, but these are gonna be contingent on, these numbers are not correct, so we'll make sure that those get updated. The grading policy is one that is going to be still fluid. Everything will come out to a letter grade. Everything has to be computed to a letter grade for GPA at the very end of the day. But our approach this year is, as we visit with them, our new LMS program does allow us to do standards-based grading and or traditional grading. And what we're seeing is that there are some subjects that lend themselves better to the traditional than that. So we are going to allow our teachers that flexibility and work really hard with the ones that are trying the standards-based and help them fine-tune it and grow. But at the very least, what we want is communication on how's my kid doing, where do they need help at. And last
That
year,
was so hard.
it was hard last year. We had a hard time getting that out. And so So that is going to
The
be,
kids didn't even know where they were.
no, it was difficult. And so teachers are gonna know that they have the ability to blend it, but what makes quality teaching is the students know what the instruction is, they know the target that they're going at. That feedback piece in a timely manner is key for the kids to be able to grow.
Well,
One
we're
of the,
basing some of those just basing just solely on tests.
and so that's where, that's where the kids are, the teachers are gonna have the flexibility to experiment on where's that balance. And I've talked about pendulums all the time. You have a pendulum that can go all the way over here, you have a pendulum all the way over here. I'm not in favor of the traditional pendulum all the way over, where it's just do this, I'm gonna average it out by the end, and you're done. But the standards base, if you swing all the way over, it also says, just keep doing, trying, and when you get there, you get the grade. This mindset, kids got really hung up on the, I don't care, I'm not gonna do it right now, I can just show that I know it later on. And what happened is kids got caught up, they got so far behind, they were at the point of no return. And there has to be better feedback somehow between it. So that's where we're looking to have the standards approach, teaching to the standards, but improving that feedback and communication. So always gonna keep our fingers crossed, it's always a work in progress, but I think with last year, the teachers felt like they had to be so far on one pendulum that it restricted them from something else. They felt like they were gonna do something wrong if they did it against that other way. And so that's where we're already talking with Mr. Davis, that's gonna be the approach as well.
It would be great if the parents then know how it's supposed to work.
Yep.
Even for like, I appreciate, and the high school does a pretty good job of sending a syllabus home, letting me know how it's, your junior high could not do that as well.
With the syllabus.
One, I think Mr. Cobb does. But there were some that it was a struggle. And I still don't know how they graded it.
Okay.
Well, and also the teachers having their grades in a reasonable amount of time, because I've had students that would say, well, I have everything in, I'm good, and then they get their grades put in there and they were
Yeah.
not very good. But it was 2 weeks after the trimester ended or whatever. So that's another thing I know that's probably an ongoing thing, but,
Yep.
and then they have no way of fixing anything because it's taken so long to get the grades in that there's no.
Well, if they want parental involvement, for me, it comes the weekend, I pull up Power School, okay, are you missing things? If you're missing things, then no, you're not doing this weekend. It's how I can be involved.
Yeah.
I lost that power, so then the teacher lost that.
So that communication piece is so important. I'm looking at Mr. Davis on that, just because it's not just us communicating about activities coming up, it's also communicating with the student learning. But it just goes to show that Jimmy illustrated that perfectly. It can't be just the school, and it can't be just the parent.
No.
We have to keep improving that. And if we fall short on that, then
So you can get a lot of help from me if I know,
if you know,
then I can help.
Are the syllabi probably the most helpful for you?
You know, as far as knowing what's expected, yes. It's really, with this new, because everybody's not grading the same. And so, as a parent, I need to know what, and my child needs to know exactly what's expected. There was, both of my boys last year, I'm like, well, how are they grading this? And they had no idea. They couldn't explain it to me. So how are they supposed to do it if they don't even know exactly what they're doing? Like,
you know, it is a process where moving in the direction of how are they grading while I take the test. That's their traditional way. They grade by, they take the test and it's right or it's wrong. And then really what happens is the focus is on grading and reporting more than on learning. And that's where we're hoping to move into that, to say, these are the rubrics, well, how's it graded? Hopefully the kids could say, well, for me to get an A, I need to be able to show this, 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 and this.
And I'm not certain that that was,
That's quite, it's not there yet.
no, and the kids did not.
And that's really what the
Get
standard
that.
is. They know the target, they say, well, if I wanna get an A, I wanna get this, 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 and this. Where the other one is, I don't know how I'm gonna get a grade. I do this, teacher can go correct it, and they just tell me what I got. So that pendulum there has removed the kids so far out, whereas if they have that, the student could say, the reason why I got an 80 on this one is because I only had 4 out of the 5 required things.
And you know,
That's-
the only Mrs. Erickson's class, I was able to sit down with my 7th grader and he would show me the rubric and show me how, that's the only class I saw when in junior high. With the rubrics so that we both could understand what the goal was, and,
Right.
so that's kind of important.
And I think along that teacher is further along with the standards-based approach and understanding that. But there are others that are doing the traditional model.
And I didn't have a problem because I knew how they were reading.
Yeah,
But then there were some that I don't know.
they were maybe trying this, but not
If
as.
they knew what
They
they
weren't
were.
completely sure, but it's fine, we're gonna figure it out this one.
I
I like
Put in, one put out. It is, it's moving in the right direction. Other things, the cell phone, the policy, the procedure for junior high is going to continue.
Just in there longer.
K through 8, we don't want to see it. K through 8. High school, it's going to be more where we're going to focus on the teachers in the classroom to make sure that the class environment is a learning environment. That's going to be something where we look at that. Extracurricular activities for there's discipline policy, respectful, responsible, and ready are going to be the main things that we focus on in teaching. Goes over discipline, plagiarism and cheating. I think there's anything else. There's the different levels of discipline will be spelled out in here. If there are behaviors that fall within these levels, this will help our administration just be consistent with this is what it is. It's on a level 2. We're going to call your parents. Some of the things that we're looking at, if we're getting into levels 2s and 3s with behaviors, these are, they're starting to get serious. And for us to be able to ensure the safety of the learning environment, safety of individuals, limit the hazing, limit the bullying as much as possible. Extracurricular activity suspension is one that hadn't been on that. I just have a hard time thinking if we're going to have somebody who's suspended for an activity that they do at school, why are we putting them on a bus and putting West Jefferson Panthers on them and letting them go out and promote our school? It's one of those things that we have to have, we want to be able to see those different activities as a privilege. It's still a privilege to come to school. We shouldn't be thinking I have the right to just disrupt class all the time. Going on, what's our product of the student that's going to be coming out? We want our employees to be disrespectful all the time with each other. We don't. We want to be able to be respectful, responsible, and ready. So those are some things that are in here. Again, there's a lot to go over. So intention's not to go over every single one. Tardies, we listened to you about the tardies. I shared with you kind of what my thought is on that. Truancies, which is when they're completely skipping class. Visitors in school. One of the things on the safety one, I need to visit with you on the safety one. This one needs to be updated a little bit. Transferring, search and seizure, Saturday school. So students who are above the 5 absences or the more than 5 tardies in a class period will be asked to come to summer school. We will with summer school Saturday school in place with that. So
If you have that, this goes back, I didn't know that you were having that Saturday school.
last year.
So, back where you can spend money for lost.
Oh, the learning loss.
You could have that open for kids that need extra tutoring as well, if you've got somebody that's already going to be there.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
That's a great idea.
Good connection on that. Thank you. think that's the last one. We will have the kids sign it. This won't be ready for registration. The school board does need to look at this and approve the handbook with the different changes that we have in our procedures.
And that will help them happen next Thursday.
And that will help it next Thursday on that. So if you have any other ideas or feedback, this is the time, because definitely open. I think we'll revisit some of those things. This has been super helpful. But one of the ideas that Mr. Davis had is students that do sign it, look over it, follow that PBIS, have something for them on that. So he's already on board. Other thoughts? Am I missing
So
something?
you'll go over it with them as well, right? Like in orientation?
Yeah, so we'll have,
That's really helpful if they know what
Yeah.
is expected.
so it's hefty. It's a pretty long document. So 16 pages. I mean, we didn't even go
No.
into everything.
So
No.
this is,
But-
I brought this just so you could see what they've done in the past. They have.
Yeah, and we pulled some from that, and some from other districts, and some just things that Shane would like to do, things that people.
Just from the different feedback. Especially the changes were things that, as I observed, these were not clear. You need to clarify. That's the whole purpose of this, just to have clarity,
Well, expectations.
expectations.
So they can follow things if they know.
In that student handbook, did it outline the blended learning days?
No.
Is that something that will be added, just so they know?
Part of it is,
You're
we
still not
could
sure.
have a blurb, but we
You'd have to generalize it.
would have to generalize. We wouldn't have specific information because we're gonna be working with our teachers to make sure that,
So can you put what was already on, like, that we
Yeah.
read, just that part that says, that unless you're notified by the teacher.
a
you are
blended day
required to
is a
know.
regular day in school.
Because
You
you
are
can't go back
expected
and
to come
change
to
that
school
later.
on a blended day
Yeah, attendance.
unless the teacher tells you you can have just those two
Yeah,
sentences.
Yes,
Okay.
and they'll have questions, but say, I'll let you know.
So blended days and college days and the safety procedures are the ones that we need to sit down. Okay, well, that's what on mine before I open it up to everybody. Just a FYI, our bond election is coming up. This was sent out to all the patrons. Bond will be on August 31st. School districts run bonds because we do not have enough money allocated towards buildings. End of story. A bond is an election that is looked at as a tax on your local community. Right now, the state of Idaho does not have a general maintenance or major maintenance facility fund available to schools. And so it is, basically, if we want to fix our buildings up or do anything with our buildings, I am put in the position where I have to come out and ask for money. That's all it is. Schools have been funded better than they've ever been funded for their maintenance and effort, which goes towards teacher salaries and benefits. There's a small little sliver. I can't give you the exact amount, but it's not even enough to hire the personnel to run our classified staff, our custodians, our maintenance. It doesn't even cover those salaries, let alone coming in and remodeling buildings. So we do have the roof on the main high school, which that last rainstorm, we did have rain coming down in the building.
Looked like a waterfall by the office.
Waterfall. We did have a waterfall.
I've been there when it was raining.
That's the next roof that's there. One thing that's happened in our district is we've extended our roofing life as far as we can. We haven't been on roofs are about 20 years before they should be changed.
We're like on 30.
But sometimes you can get 5 or 6 years more until a leak happens. And then it starts to come. And this is something that from the history, it's not a blame on Mr. Soderquist or any previous superintendent or school board members. That's just kind of how it's been in our district. We get the most out of it. Sometimes you go up there and like, well, it's not leaking yet. Why should we change it? So we could look into the future, others, to say we change it out every 20 years.
But when you don't change it, then you end up with the floods, and then you end up with damage, and it ends up costing you more money.
Right.
Right.
And so some people are saying, well, why didn't you change it out? Why didn't you change it out? Why didn't you change it out? Part of it, when you go back into the history of the schools, 2007, Idaho changed the funding where they fund schools from from property tax locally to sales tax. And then when that happened in 2007, sales tax was high for a couple of years, and then boom, we had the recession in 09, and it just totally hit. So what happened is this, from our perspective, again, I'm not trying to get political on anybody with taxes or anything else. There was a property tax relief from the state level that went out to blanket to everybody. But that money before 2007, that local sales tax, or excuse me, property tax went to the districts already. When you look at our funds from property taxes 2007 and before, there was a consistent level that came into the schools. 2007, it was supposed to switch to sales tax, which then was changed. When that dropped off, this money completely went away. So the property owner, yes, they got a break from the state, boom, saying, yay, we don't have to pay. But then the schools are going, oh, I don't have this consistent amount coming in to do that. So from 2007 until now, the number of districts that had to go back and say, okay, I have to come and ask for a supplemental levy, I have to ask for a bond for maintenance, goes up. And so the state basically, from at least my perspective on how it looks, gave property tax relief, but then forces the districts to have to come out and then raise that back up because it went away somewhere.
What percent of districts in Idaho have to have a supplemental bond or levy?
Almost 90% of them. And before there was like only a handful that ever had that. And so that's where it puts, like as a superintendent, it puts me in a tough situation because we are in a conservative area and we cannot do anything with our buildings without the support of the community. End of story. And so if this bond passes, we are going to fix roofs, we are going to fix facilities. And as superintendent, when I look at facilities, everything that we own is part of the facility. Our track is 15 years old and the paint is coming off, the rubber is coming off. If you go walk out to our track, it looks nice when you walk out there, but it needs to be replaced and repaired. Our football field is not on this current bond, but I'm just putting that out there. That's a facility that we have. And I think we can get another 5 to 8 years out of it, but that's a facility. Gyms are our facilities. Classrooms are our facilities. Everything that we have here is a facility. And so as we look at the different things on this bond, here are the proposed projects that we have for it. The safety upgrades that we're looking at with locking door systems, communication systems throughout the district, those things are on our list. Roof replacements, when this bond passes, we're having roofs replaced. The main one, the high school gym, the high school roof, the new gym's roof, surprise, it's 25 years old. We need to get it replaced. Auditorium, lighting and electrical, the track rebuild, parking lot updates, general ones with interior, exterior buildings. We're asking for $1.5 million for this in a 5-year. This was, as our school board, we were talking about this, you have to ask for it 2 or 3 or 4 months before. We don't know what construction costs are. I've heard as of late, they're starting to creep down a little bit, but that's until the next, you know, it just, we didn't want to sell ourselves short because these things need to be repaired and they need to be fixed. If we don't pass it, we're gonna have to ask for it again and figure out where to go. We do have a plant facility budget that we have that's already part of the books with our bonds and levies. Half of that goes into transportation every single year. And so that helps cover the general budget. The bonds are helping to cover the bigger projects. And so this one here has no new projects into it, but it does include, as we're looking at the old high school gym, the bleachers need to be repaired. This could be a commons area for the students. That's the idea behind that we have some tables that can be pulled out in the old gym for that. A lot of good things that we want to do. As superintendent, I want to take care of the facilities that we have. And we can't do it without the school board, or excuse me, without the school bonds in place. So I never really imagined myself as being like, okay, let's just be that guy that goes out and asks for money. I'm not asking for it for myself. These are the facilities. We can take care of it with this. If the community supports it, then we will continue going forward. If it doesn't, the roof still needs to be fixed. These projects still need to be fixed. We'll have to scramble somewhere and find it, but we'll probably have to re-ask, whether we re-ask for less and only fix a couple projects. It's eventually, it's not, the buildings aren't gonna go anywhere. And so, I don't know, feedback from you guys that are here, I know it's hard to ask for stuff, but these are things that have to be done. Julie?
I guess I just want to encourage anybody listening to, if they're in favor of this and they want to support it, to get on their social media or talk to their friends, call their neighbors and talk about it, because I think a lot of times we only hear the ones that want to say don't vote, but I think the ones that are really wanting it just kind of stay to themselves and vote for it in silence and don't really talk about it. So I really think that's one of the big things that we need to do to help promote it, that it's needed and necessary, and where else would we want to spend our money is on our kids. I mean, people donate things all the time to different organizations, but we need to spend our hard-earned money on our kids, and everybody's gonna benefit from these projects, whether they play sports or not. There's something on this list that needs to be done. I mean, roof repair, not having flooded schools and things like that, is very important, so.
And I was just gonna say, you're really good about going out to the community and talking about these things, you know. And I'm assuming you're gonna do that anyway, on that, because when you get down to the track and things like that, that may turn people off. But, you know, the roof go on, when people realize, especially on rains we had lately, we need to do it.
Right.
So I prioritize that.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to like have some medicine with some sugar in it, saying, okay, let's get a roof, something that we really need, and throw in that track. There's no hidden agenda here.
No, it's there for people to need.
The track is a facility at West Jefferson.
Yeah.
And it has to be taken care of. It's something that's here as part of the facilities. But you're absolutely right, Andy, because there are some that will go, I support education, but that track thing looks kind of athletic to me. I don't really like those athletics. I can't separate. Like, I can't come into West Jefferson and say, I'm only gonna take care of academics, I'm only gonna take care of buildings.
And that's because you're a superintendent, the teacher, the science teacher, I'll say, oh, you know, I'm in science labs.
Right.
Things like that, forget about the track. So, but, you know, presentation is very important, not to say we pull the wool over people's eyes, but.
Are you going to set up like a little booth or something?
I can.
Just an informational, or do you not think that?
It's one of those things where, because we're not asking for new projects, that's the part where I really think with the new projects, that it needs to be super clear. We're building something new, we're adding
You
on.
involve more stuff in that.
This one here is just general repairs. I don't know what else I can do. I'm hoping that people will want to come and talk. I don't know. I can't come out and tell you how to vote. A superintendent, it's not my job. This is the reason why we're proposing it, and this is how we're going to use the money. That's what I can share.
Hamer's. So when I look at it first, I'm like, well, what's for Hamer on there? Like, is there nothing, like what safety upgrades can Hamer, like, is there anything going towards Hamer?
Those safety upgrades would be the same with the communication systems would be district-wide.
That's like talking to Hamer people, that's just what, because when you look at it and you're from Hamer. you're like,
General repairs, interior.
And here's the thing is, I know, like, if you live in Hamer, you're like, hey, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
But be honest, there's the Hamer subject, there's people that say, if it's for Hamer, I'm against it.
Yeah.
That's just
For
the
sure.
reality
Yeah.
of some of the viewpoints in our district, which is unfortunate on both sides.
But Hamer's roof is done, so there's
But-
nothing huge that.
but I'll say-
They need update, they need the remodel, the safety upgrades, but they're not.
Because I'm the
Nothing
superintendent
impressive.
at West Jefferson School
Yeah.
District, which includes Hamer, which includes everybody. And so it's frustrating when I see that and going, well, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's in it for us? Like,
And the kids come out here too.
they do.
Where they go.
And there's a benefit, there's always a trade-off. You look at, is it worth it? Is education worth it? How do you really put a price on public education? And again, there's an attack on public education. There are some probably school districts in the country somewhere that probably need to be questioned and say, hey, what is going on? What kind of product are you really providing here? But I can speak for West Jefferson. We have a great school district. We have people who care about this community, care about this country, care about our kids, care about their opportunities. Going back to our mission statement, small school, big opportunities and possibilities. That's what we can do here. And I'm hoping, this is something that I think that we want to do stuff that the old gym, having that place for the kids to go into, what an amazing thing. They've never had a place to eat. They eat in the hallway,
On the floor.
on the floor.
I mean, that was fine for 1997, but give them times.
At 98. But that's the thing that this community has been really great. And this is, I say, wow, that's a lot of money that you're asking. I can't apologize for the number there because it's an investment. It's an investment to our facilities, which ultimately give our kids an opportunity to have the best experience they have when they come here. But it's also something that our community can be proud of. You look at the facilities that we have, yes, some of them are old, but they're in great shape. Roofs need to be fixed, yes, but we try to keep things up. We try to keep things up, and we're proud of some of those controversial things. Our football field, our track facility, our new gym from 1996 to 97, those are wonderful things that have blessed our community. And I can't imagine what it would be like not having those. And so with this, I don't want to come across as saying you're asking for stuff and just not realizing the impact. It is, investing in education is something that does take a sacrifice. So
You can't take a good education away from a kid. And one thing that it just flummoxes me, and I cannot figure it out, but we do have all this girl support, we have a nice small community and all, and why our standardized schools are not going to stay like that. I can't figure that out.
I can have a conversation with later about standardized scores and really, are they measuring what we're really looking for?
Well, I can sign.
We have to have something. We have to have something to measure. I don't disagree that there has to be something to say, where are you at really? But do those scores really reflect success? Do those really success greatness?
I agree with you on a theoretical perspective, but those are the standards, and that's what we measure by.
Right.
I don't know.
So we can discuss that at a different time, because you're right, we would love to knock those out of the park every single time. But you also have you it's one of those things. There's so many different variables that go into that. So you've been a teacher, you know that. But
Well, North Las Vegas, Park County, we're Oregon, they just lowered the standards.
now they're hitting it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Knocking it out. Last thing on the information stuff, our board meetings will be in the afternoon at 1:30. As the board met, they decided that all of them are put on YouTube Live. So there's very transparent on everything that we're doing. We're hoping that maybe some parents will actually come where they don't have kids at home. They could come to the board meetings at the end of the day, pick up their kids at the end. We're hoping that it will increase.
So going forward, not just this next meeting.
No, moving forward. And
Yeah, so until we meet in January and we set our new schedule.
we know that might not work for some people, but as I look at the attendance records, I think it's it's going to be a watch. There'll be some that will say, oh, I can never make it now, but I haven't seen them there regularly either. So it's just one of those things. If it's going to be important enough for someone to be to, they'll make it there. This will also allow us to also have presentations from teachers that could come in, give updates on their departments, the different things that they're doing in the schools, without having to have them come back 7 o'clock in the evening, where most of our teachers live out of town. So that's one thing that we're going to try. It works for this current board. They're going to, if there's ever future boards that can't work for board members, then it could change back, and that's what they're going to do.
Could I make a suggestion about something that y'all might discuss as a board?
Sure.
You know, you give parents and patrons 3 minutes to speak at a board meeting. I mean, I can't even get a thought out in 3 minutes. But perhaps you could allot, I don't know, 15, 30 minutes for patron participation. And if one person shows up, you know, they have access to all 30 minutes, so I doubt that would happen. If 2 people, 15, you know, 10 people, then we get back every 3 minutes. But, you know, I would think that might encourage more people to come if they knew they had a little bit more time to come. I
The
don't know,
thing
it's
about the board meetings is they're governed by so many Idaho code that we have to follow. And the board meeting isn't necessarily.
A work meeting.
It's not really that setting. The board meeting is where you get to come and watch the board conduct their business. Where if you have concerns where you want to be able to talk to someone, we schedule an appointment with the superintendent. You come to these meetings. That's what these meetings are for.
And so,
Does everybody have these meetings?
Not all districts, no.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, so.
So our
Okay,
superintendent.
so I guess we're fortunate to have this.
Yes.
this was a decision that I had as other districts, I didn't invent this, other districts have done this. It's just, I felt like, because the board meeting is only the business meeting portion of it,
Yeah.
patrons felt frustrated because you're not supposed to have the dialogue unless the board chair does that. And in past meetings, sometimes those get really heated in that, because it's frustrating for a patron to come and say, I want action right now. That's really not the time for them to go back and forth and give that viewpoint. That's more of a working meeting. It's more, so we could have a work meeting. So if there's some like specific agenda item on a work meeting where somebody can come in, you could ask the board chair to say, can we put this on a work meeting where we can have some people to come and have that dialogue? That's where that can take place, where the actual board meeting is, here's the business, here are the things, these are the things we're voting on. That's how we're doing it. So I wanted these PAW meetings to be this initial part to say, okay, where are we at? The board has hired me to really do the business with the district, and then their job is to make the decisions final on those things.
Okay, okay, I'm learning.
And there used to be, like, before, there were, when I was on the board, we had committees, and each board member, there were 2 board members over each different committee, and we would have open meetings like this. Each committee would,
With the board members.
with the board members and.
But what I've learned though, because the board members are there on the board committee, that's subject to all open meeting laws.
And you actually have to
You
take minutes, put it
Minutes,
up in your
posts,
binder.
on all of those, and it's just, that's something that,
Well, I thought not if there's not
no.
3.
No, because they're
Oh,
official.
It's a quorum, because it's an assigned committee by the board, then it's board business, whether you have 1 board member, 2 board members. You have the quorum, like 2 or less is less than a quorum of it.
Right.
A quorum lets you vote, but by having that there, it's still board business. And then that's what I learned at the,
And so then your
ISB
clerk has to be present at every single one of those committee meetings.
which is kind of just,
Just very cumbersome.
which does create the cumbersome part of it, where this here allows for the
Yeah, well,
the
this is cool.
discussion. So, other things, questions, information, this has been a very helpful meeting. It's been long, but it's been so informative. This has been really, really good. Other questions, concerns, questions that have come up? No?
We're excited to see what you do with the fair. They're pretty.
Yeah. Adjourn the meeting. Thank you again for coming. The next PAW meeting, just as a reminder, was that September. September 8th, I believe. Yep, September 8th, 9 o'clock.